Okay, there we go. We're back again every single time this app updates. All good. We figured, now I know what to look for in the software. That makes sense. We're learning, we're getting better. Yeah, so welcome to Friday. Happy Friday, everyone. We made it to the end of the week. We are back with the fourth installment. So we are, after tonight, we'll be halfway through part one of Horizons. Again, there are 3 parts of Horizons. The next part of Horizons we'll actually get a 2-day-a-week slot, just so you know. But we're back with episode 4, and we got some cool stuff to talk about tonight. Yep, got it. Habanero, congratulations on being first. Good job being first. I like the Pikachu there. Someone on Discord said they're still looking for old videos. Do you think you'll keep them up just in case? Yes, I'm actually going to keep all the videos up now. I'm not going to delete any of them. I'm going to change the names so that people know the like quarter in which they were streamed in year, just to more easily be identifiable, and I'll stick them together into their own playlist to make sure everything is good to go. So I'm not going to overwrite anything. I'm not going to delete any of the videos. So it's all good. Quantifier, you missed last week's. No problem, not a problem at all. They all go on. All of these are on YouTube at this point. I'm about 3 days behind on videos, but they're there. They'll get there. I kind of been batch doing them every 3 or 4 days because I broke my automation and I got to fix it. What's up, Abon? How are you doing? We did it. So I haven't looked all day. I've had an extremely busy day. I was always going to hold, first off, always. And now I got to check. I'm in it to win. I'm holding. Did it go back up? Okay. Hey, we did do it. We did it. So we'll see kind of how the full squeeze plays out. I'm interested just to see what happens. I want to see what kind of carnage we created, and good job working together. We did it. The stuff we are learning here in pipelines are the content people are asking when they're asking system design questions. Yeah. So that's a really good question. It's a little bit of both. More so. It's a little bit of both. It's more so, I think, for the pipelines course, because we're diving into a little deeper into the systems themselves. But to do that systems design, to understand how you can build things, you got to kind of know what's available to you, and it helps to have some of the knowledge that we get here. Definitely a combination of the two, but probably more so the pipeline stuff. That stuff is coming. That stuff is we are going to be covering things like that. Even tonight, we're going to be talking about some deployment strategies and deployment patterns, which kind of goes also into your system design, as well as something that needs to be incorporated and understood when you are doing that. So we will definitely, we're definitely going to get deeper into that. What's up, MB? On here before Leon's class starts. Dope. Welcome. Hedge funds did underestimate the coordination of the world. They did. They definitely underestimated it, and it's gonna, I'm excited about it. Definitely excited about it. What's up, Nasty? What's up, Longball? Good to have you. Nitro Sage, how are you doing? You can see here, I got my purple in the background. I got my light fixed. I connected it to the new internet that I have, which it has been working out pretty well. It's been pretty consistent, and I talk a lot of. It's only fair that I give a lot of crap to Comcast, and so I will, when things are working well, I'll give them their kudos as well. Can't only be critical. You got to be kind as well. So we'll give them that. What's up, Duke Nukem? So for tonight, what is on the docket? Let's actually head on over. Tonight, you will see in the Google Classroom, I'll give you the slides for this. We have 3 different sections. Tonight, we're talking about, I forgot just that fast. We're talking about, we're going into databases. We're going to learn a little bit about databases, both SQL and NoSQL databases, just touch on lightly on that. But tonight, specifically around AWS, specifically around RDS. Remember, we are learning about AWS. We want to know AWS specific services. And so we're going to dive into RDS. We're going to dive into how the internet works with DNS and Route53. So we've already touched on that a little bit in pipelines. We will touch on that today. We'll also get hands-on with Route53, which is the service that handles DNS for AWS. And we'll also dive into some deployment patterns to kind of understand some of those things. We'll get hands-on with a lot of stuff tonight. And so we're going to hit right into it because it is there are a lot of slides. There are 3 completely separate slide decks for this evening. So let me head over, not calendar, classroom. Sometimes you just gotta learn how to spell. I've gotten really good at relying on things that I've typed on previously. It's kind of like a little autocomplete there for me, which is pretty nice. Don't you hate ISPs? Yeah, I mean, they really are annoying a majority of the time, but you know, I can't provide my own ISP service, so you know, it is what it is. It definitely is what it is. 8 years I've used Xfinity. I've never had a problem that wasn't fixed by restarting the cable modem. So yes, Duke Nukem, 100%. For the most part, yes, but that's problematic when it happens during the stream, and it was starting to happen a lot during the stream. John Wonton in at the very beginning with all the love with 20 gifted subs. Happy Friday to everybody. Congratulations to everyone who received a sub. Amazing. The war on, you know, it's raging as strong as it's ever raged. The war on advertisements. I appreciate that, man. I'll find a way to pay you back. I'm definitely going to reach out to you. I got to get you some swag for sure. So actually a couple things about that. We did not forget about you. If you've contributed to the stream, you have swag coming. One of the problems we're having is with USPS shipping. It has actually been incredibly problematic. I just got the first order of stickers that I placed back in December, and it was stuck in California since the beginning of the month. And so I just got that. There's some other stuff still, the socks are still on the way, but they're already in transit, but USPS is having all kinds of issues. I actually feel like they've lost that box or something, but I can't really get any updates. I'm having trouble getting updates on it, but you should see some stuff soon about it. But John Wonton, I will absolutely get you some swag, because you know, we can't do this without you. We couldn't do this without you. You're a mainstay of the channel. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for the love. Now, tonight we have these 3 slide decks. We'll start with DNS because it's the most exciting. If you don't know how the internet works, you will tonight. But we've also purchased a domain that we can mess around with. We are now going to be the masters of, what did I buy? I bought tothemoon.academy. The number 2, themoon.academy. I purchased it because we're going to the moon, okay? We're going to the moon. That's our ethos now. .academy. This is Mastermind Academy. That's what we own now, and we'll mess around with that. You know, yeah, I'm pretty sure that's it. I'm not 100% sure that's it, but I'm pretty sure that's it. We will park a site there, and we will use this site for stuff, okay? This is going to be our domain. We're going to have a lot of stuff. We're gonna do a lot of stuff with this. So tothemoon.academy is what we're going to be working with. And so we'll hop into this first. Let me make sure everyone has access to it, even though it looks like a bunch of people are already in here. Anyone with the link? No, not remove link. That was the opposite of what I wanted to do. Anyone with the link here? Copy link. If anyone wants the first slide deck, that's there. I will update that command as well. And we will get going with this, because you need to learn you need to understand how the internet works. I mean, we're talking about the cloud, we're talking about AWS. Obviously, we need to know exactly how the internet works. And so the very first thing we're going to talk about is DNS, and dive straight in. We'll drive straight into Route 53 and mess around with a lot of that stuff because this part is important. Now, this again is an AWS specific course. So I could just show you Route 53, but it's important you understand what the heck the service does because it's so integral to everything that we do. So how in the world does the internet work? Well, through the domain name system. This is exactly what we learned in pipelines class. There's you know, for the beginner level classes, there's a lot of overlap in between all of them. But yeah, it does work because of magic, you know, but it works because of a coordinated effort in a lot of different services. So the internet works because of the domain name system. This is DNS. This is, if you want to know any topic, this one's really important for you to know. All right, the domain name system. What does it do? Well, it allows the internet to have its proverbial phone book. All right, I think we all remember phone books. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know how old everybody is. I'm old enough to remember phone books. Even, you know, I remember them. We had to look up businesses. You know, you say, hey, I'd really like to order a pizza, and you'd pick up the yellow pages. Or was it the white pages? Was the yellow pages for people and white pages for, I don't know, one of the two. You pick up the book, you open it up to the pizza section, you look alphabetically, you find Papa John's or Domino's or Pizza Hut right there, and it would give you the number, and then you'd call that number from your phone. Well, we want to do the same thing here because, whoops, let's go over here. It's because the internet does not operate over domain names. White pages are for people. Okay, yellow is for business. So yellow pages is where you want to get your pizza from. White pages, if you want to call your Aunt Shirley, that's where you would find her number, which is very interesting. I've been thinking about everyone's concern over privacy and everything, and it's like, bruh, didn't all of our information used to be in a phone book? Couldn't you find people's addresses too? I don't know. I don't really remember, but yeah, whatever. But the internet, the computers don't, domain names don't mean anything to a computer. www.google.com doesn't really mean anything to a computer. A computer can't really use that to do anything without the domain name system. The web, the way that web browsers interact with a system is through IP. It's through the internet protocol. You've probably heard of IP addresses. IP stands for Internet Protocol. This is the this protocol. This Internet Protocol is a set of rules that is enacted to allow transmission of data over a network. And these IP addresses are actually numbers. Okay, so it's 4 octets of numbers. So 567.294.831.27, whatever. And this is what your computer needs to be able to connect to. It needs that IP address, similar to a phone number. All right, but that doesn't really work for us. That doesn't really work for humans. All right, we don't really like that. So we memorize things much better when it has a domain name, something that we can commit to memory, a word or phrase that we can say, and it's pretty cool. So that is what we like to use, and that is what DNS does. It translates that domain that you type in. It translates www.tothemoon.com or .academy into the IP address of where it resides, the network address to where it resides. So it translates it to 54.168.25.7 or whatever number. I just made that number up, but it translates that. It's how your computer knows where to go on a network to get the information that it needs. All right, that is the gist of the domain name system. That is at its root what DNS does. But it, although that might sound pretty simple, that might sound, relatively easy to understand, DNS can be a pretty complex topic, and there are a lot of different things that go into it. We are not going to become DNS experts tonight, but we will get involved with the basics. We over RPCs, not in the apprentice level courses. Maybe I added a little of that to one of the intermediate courses. So not for a little while, but one day, for sure. Yeah, an IP address is as good as a mailing address. It's how a computer knows where to access another computer over a network. It really is. Okay, so how does DNS do this translation? How does it know how to map an IP address to a domain name? Well, through these things called DNS records. All right, and so DNS records are the things that do the mapping of IP addresses or wherever the location for something is to go to. This is what handles that mapping. So the main record that is done to do this are called A records. All right, an A record or a host record. You'll hear it called host record sometimes, but A record is what probably most people call it. It maps something like Google.com over here, a domain name. So if you go purchase your own domain, it maps that domain name to an IP address. And so it's a one-to-one mapping. It must be this IP address or an IP address, and it must be an IPv4 address, IP version 4. And so that's the normal address, like IP address you're probably used to is an IPv4 address. If you've ever had Comcast or somebody come and set up your router or your internet, or you wanted to change your password, they say, hey, go and hit up 192.168.1.1. That is an IP address. It's an internal IP address. That's why everyone's is the same. It's internal. It's the internal network of your home, but that's an IP address to your router. So that same kind of IP address you might be familiar with, that's an IP version 4 IP address that uses these numbers. And A records are specifically to map domain names to IPv4 addresses, and it is the most common record type and will be probably for a while. All right, now we have quadruple A records. So single A records, now we got quadruple A records. What are quadruple A records? These are the same things. These are also host records, but instead of being a mapping between IPv4 addresses, it is a mapping to IPv6 addresses, IP version 6 addresses. So you might say, what's IPv4? What's IPv6? This version 6 of IP addresses allows basically for many many more IP addresses. It is a significant amount more IP addresses. We are running into the same problem that we ran into with phone numbers. It's the same reason why we now have area codes where, you know, there's only but so many combinations of phone numbers that you can give out. And as phones became more and more prevalent, and it wasn't just house phones, we needed a way to be able to divvy out and to dole out more phone numbers. IPv4, because we have so many different devices all over the networks everywhere, we are running out of IPv4 addresses. And so we need a new standard so that we can, you know, give out more IP addresses. And this is where quadruple A records come in, and this is where IPv6 comes in. And so it looks a lot different. It's got letters and it's got numbers here. And so it's a lot different than what we are seeing. And it just allows for many more combinations of IP addresses. And this is something that's still being rolled out now. You know, some ISPs have support for it. Some people are using it. Comcast uses it. I think if you look up your IP address for Comcast now, you'll end up having both. But yeah, IPv6, that's all it is. So a quadruple A record is specifically that, just like it's an A record, but for a newer version of the internet protocol. Do all A records have quad A records? So that's an interesting question because of the way it was asked, but no, you can have one or the other. You don't need both. Yeah, you don't need both. You can have one or the other, but it's worth noting that right now, everything doesn't support IPv6. Your ISP may or may not. The system that you have set up may or may not. There's a lot of things behind it, but no, everything's not going to have both. But you can have both. All right, CNAME records. CNAME records are canonical names, but these allow you to point a domain name to another domain alias. Okay, so it allows you to alias a domain. It's not a redirect, but it allows you to point something like www.google.com to something like public.o2.fun.com, and it allows you to use another domain as the endpoint for where you want to send your data. You'll use this a lot. Something that's used a lot. Luckily, we're going to see tonight that for Amazon, for Route53 and Amazon, they really help you out by enabling some magic with A records that you don't really have to worry about CNAMEs quite as much. But yeah, one is for pointing to an IP address. This allows you to point to another domain name instead. Give you a little alias there. Then there's mail records. So MX records are for the mail exchange. They're mail exchange records. And if you've ever had to set up mail for, like, maybe you got a business Gmail address or a business Office 365 account, and they had you go into your website's DNS panel and they had you change some MX records, some mail records. And this is going to be the place to, when things are transferred over these mail protocols, this is what it'll look up and this is where it'll send them. And so, yeah, MX records are for mail. You can have a bunch of these and you can set the priority. So you can have kind of redundant mail servers and set priority to where things get sent based on a number. But yeah, so far we have A records, which is a host record that maps a domain name to an IP address. We have quadruple A records, which is the same thing as a host record, but it maps a domain name to an IPv6 address. We have CNAME records, which maps a domain name to an alias domain name, and MX records, which helps you understand that we can map the domain's location to route mail, things sent over mail protocols. Okay. And then there's NS records. So how do we set these things? Where do these things go? This is where name servers get set. This is going to be the place that's going to hold these all the records. This is going to be the place where systems are directed to get information about your domain. And yeah, I mean, usually they're preceded with NS, so people know that they're name servers, but it can be really anything. And it's just the name servers responsible for providing that DNS information. So you can use any number of name servers. You can set up your own name server, whatever. Don't set up your own name server. Use something that already exists. I wouldn't mess with this unless you know what you're doing. But yeah, it allows you to set up where systems should go to get the information about your site, to look up the DNS information about your site. All right, we're not gonna go over DNS tools. We might touch one or two in a second, but we're not like this is what the goal of tonight is not this. It's to dive into Route 53. So we need to talk about the AWS service that handles this. Route 53 is truly, it is truly a powerful tool. If you've had to deal with DNS at all, I've dealt with DNS manually. I've run pretty large bind servers. Bind is a DNS utility on Linux. I've run bind servers in the past. I've done a lot of stuff with DNS. DNS can get very, very complicated very, very quickly. Route 53 is a godsend. It really does have some amazing features that make your life pretty easy, and it's pretty dope. So Route 53 is the AWS service, so commit that to memory. We have a service called Route 53 that handles what it does, what it solves is it's a managed DNS service, okay? That's all you need to know. The tool that Amazon has, the service that Amazon has for DNS is Route 53. You'll get paid to know that information, okay? Why is it called Route 53 for one? Well, you know, cause like a road, you know, these DNS entries and things are kind of routes to different places. You know, it tells you how to get to different places. But 53 is the port of DNS. DNS runs traditionally over port 53, and that is why it's called Route 53. And what's funny is, I knew this, I never made the connection, and you all made this connection for me like over a year ago. I was like, I have no idea why it's called Route 53, even though I knew I've run DNS servers for, you know, plenty of times. I knew this, I never made the connection. And so again, something else I learned from you all, but by default, DNS runs over port 53. Should you open 53 on your router? You don't need to open 53 on your router at all. You did. Yep, port 53, Route 53, mind blown. Exactly. That's how I felt. I was like, how did I not know that? Like, how didn't I know that? No, you do not need to open up port 53 on your router unless you are serving something off of it. I guess you're, yeah, I mean, it's probably already open, to be honest, but we'll see. A DNS server responds to the requests that come in on port 53 always. Outgoing response can go out over any port, yeah. So you don't need to do anything extra to get that. Okay, it's a highly scalable DNS service, and this is a really big piece here. Scalability, that's a big thing with the cloud. We're worried about how we can serve more and more people, and you know, having something you don't really have to worry about, and the way that it scales, it can respond to any number of requests, any number of lookups, which is really, really nice. It has some really cool tools like managing traffic flow. This is one of the things that I love the most about Route 53. You can control where your traffic goes at the DNS level. So you can do things like latency-based routing. So depending on how long it takes for packets to get from and requests to get from a certain computer to these systems, you can use that information to determine where what is responded to with the DNS, where the request is going to send people to, which is really cool. You can do it by location as well. So you know, depending on where a request is from, you can send people to different places. You can give people different information based on where they are requesting from. So that's, you know, GeoDNS and GeoProximity, and you can do some weighted round robin stuff. So you can do some DNS based load balancing as well. And this works a little like your implementation of this would be different from a normal load balancer, but you can push things to different places and balance requests to different regions, different places in the world, to different setups based on however you would like to weight it. And it is, you know, it's pretty interesting. It's very interesting that you can do these things. Pretty helpful. You know, I think it's interesting because I think these set of features are things that matter. Like, I think you have to have a pretty significant scale for these things to matter a lot. But, and I think there's a lot of other tools that Amazon offers for you to be able to create these solutions in a different way. But having these here is really nice. And it, you know, you can get away with not using them, but they are really helpful when you have some very specific use cases. How does DNS, how does Route 53 route traffic along with CDN? I'll show you how my setup is, but really, the CDN is just a record. You have your records point to point to your CDN. So CloudFront is the CDN of AWS, and you would simply point, I would set up an A record or some kind of alias record to point my whatever domain I want you to go to. I'll point it directly at the CDN, and that's how it would route. And so you could route to different CDNs. You could have multiple CDNs that you could do some split managed traffic routing to if you would like. PK Patricia, thank you so much for continuing the gift of sub from Hashtag Friday. Hashtag Friday, if you're here, I appreciate you, man. Thank you so much. All right, might have leaving a couple to make Leon stream. All good, long ball. Appreciate you coming through. I don't understand most of it. I appreciate that. You know, I hope you learn a lot over at Leon's channel for sure. Like I said, I love it. I love it. Also, side note for you all, I'll send the information over if if someone sent me a message. I tweeted about something earlier, specifically about AWS is starting an 8-week boot camp on here, specifically around some cloud development using AWS CDK. If your goal is to learn AWS, I think that is a very good course to go to. It starts on like January 28th, and it's on Thursdays. So we'll overlap with I don't know what time it's offered, but it's the same day as Decoded for this run through, but super valuable stuff. I'll share the link on it. I tweeted about it. People were like, oh, like you got some competition. I was like, no, like I told you guys, like, that's great. I'm glad that they're offering these things. Oh, today is the 29th. Interesting. That's really funny. Today is the 29th, so I guess it did start yesterday. I didn't know anything about it, but maybe you can catch up on it if you want to do some of that stuff. Also, if you miss it and you're having trouble with it, we're going to be doing a little bit of CDK stuff here. We will do a lot of CDK stuff in the intermediate session, or more of the cloud development things in there. But I'll find it. If you Google, let me see. Let me pull it up. I talked about it, so I should give you the link right now. It is right. Yeah, I got it. Man, that's crazy. I have no idea what day of the month it is. There it goes. If you want to hop in and look at that, it's pretty dope. All right. So Route53 also allows you to do something called alias records. This is one of the biggest, coolest things you can, like, this is one of the biggest reasons people love Route53. So AWS can be, well, DNS can be super complicated with your record sets and what you're setting up and how you have to set up your records. It can actually get quite complicated where you're pointing things and how sometimes you have to chain things together, and like, it's super weird. And we're gonna talk about how DNS works a little bit more so that you can kind of understand why it might be weird, but it can get super weird. Alias records are really nice. Alias records allow us to, rather than like an A record, what did we say that mapped a domain to? We said it mapped it specifically to an IPv4 address, so an IP address. But AWS's resources, that can be tough to do when you are working with a system that's constantly spinning up and provisioning new resources and tearing things down, and IP addresses are changing, all kinds of stuff. So it can be tough. Alias records allow you to do some fanciness in there and be able to make your records point to different AWS resources much more easily. It's really cool. We'll hop in, we'll do that, and it makes a little bit of sense. But alias records are a big deal inside of Route53, and you can also purchase domains if you'd like. I purchased tothemoon.academy through there, and so you can purchase domains through this just like any other website if you like to keep all of your stuff in one place. Alex Beef, absolutely. Thank you, Arcadius. Absolutely. That we're having a good time here. This on the AWS channel, but I didn't know what you're talking about. That's fair. That's completely fair. All right. So this is mainly what Route53 is, just a DNS service. That's all I want you to know about it. And if you're taking the exams and things, it might ask you some of the features of Route53. And so these four things here: latency-based routing, geo DNS, geo proximity, and weighted round robin are pretty cool. All that information is really clearly laid out on the Route53 page, which I will show you in a second. But let's hop in and let's see what some of that looks like inside of AWS. So I'm gonna log into my console. And so, like, if you don't already have a domain, there's no reason. I mean, you can hop in here to kind of look around, but you might not even be able to see everything because of You can't really do much unless you have a domain. Oh, so I was going to my phone just now to get my Authy thing, my Authy like authentication number thing, and I just saw that BG&E, which is the power company here in Baltimore, says that there's going to be a severe weather coming soon. I knew nothing about this. I'll have to check it out. You know, see, I've been so caught up, I don't even know what's going on in life. I guess I'm kind of hoping it's snow, because I want to drive around in the snow. I have, you know, is there polar vortex Sunday and Monday? All right, hold on real quick. I'm sorry, y'all. Baltimore weather. What? Oh, how much are we? What are we looking at? How do I? Oh, okay. All right. Sizable storm moves through mid-Atlantic. So first off, let me just, I mean, I think we all know at this point, you know, I love anybody who's into meteorology. I'm, you know, I too used to read the weather at my elementary school's morning announcements. My dad used to take me to 7-Eleven, and we would either grab a newspaper or write down what was in the top right corner of the Washington Post. And I would get on there and I would say, "Good morning, everybody. This is Aaron Brooks. And today's weather will be 65 with a chance of rain." And yeah, and you know, I'd give the weather every day. That was my thing for a little while. So I too am a meteorologist of sorts. But we don't be getting it right. As meteorologists, we don't be getting the weather right all the time. So I don't know how much I can really expect 6 inches, but I will be confident that we'll get at least 2 inches. All right. They be lying to me sometimes, man. All right. So I'm logged in now, but I'm not joking about that. I was the school meteorologist. It was amazing. It was the best job I ever had. Ours was on TV too. Ours was on closed TV inside of the school. You know, it wasn't just over the intercom. You know, I had to get make sure my shirt didn't have any stains on it. My little button down little uniform that we used to have that everyone used to wear, and you know, just do my thing. It was phenomenal. I forgot about those days. All right, so recently viewed services. I'm in Route 53 pretty often. Actually, I was in there earlier because I had to purchase the domain that we are going to be using. So let's hop on into it. All right, so currently it says this is the dashboard for Route 53. Oh, it looks like this is a new console. So AWS changes their console pretty often. So I'm like I said, I interact with AWS both via console and via CLI and via SDK. So I might lose track of where things are, but we will, you know, we'll figure it out. It's a brand new thing. What's up, AJ? How are you doing? Thank you so much for the follow. What's up, Seb Haas? Welcome. Digital Collective Zero. Welcome to the channel. Thank you for the follow. TM SHKR. I did my best there. Aisha Coes as well. Thank you all for the follows. I missed all those. I'm sorry about that. If EC2 has load balancers and Route 53 has load balancers, are load balancer a service or an application? Nasty. That is a phenomenal question. That's a really, really good question. So load balancing is it is neither it is a feature enabled by different services inside of Amazon. So the services, Route 53 is a service. So Route 53, don't know which one you say, don't know which one's correct. I say Route 53. If you like Route 53, that's it. You know, either one works. EC2 is the service, okay? But those services have load balancing features. They have features that they provide, which is load balancing. So I guess you can call it an application. It is software. It's software based, and well, probably a combination of software and hardware, but it's software based and it's kind of handling those things. But it is a feature provided by different AWS services. Okay, so in here it says DNS management. This is the dashboard, and right now I have 6 hosted zones. Okay, zones are what you call the management space for a domain. It's called a zone. So hosted zones, a hosted zone in AWS is is a zone for an individual domain. This means I have 6 domains which I'm currently managing. 6 domain zones that I'm currently managing. And you can see here, I have a couple of them. I told you all I kind of manage the Baltimore Black Techies website, which is a meetup here in Baltimore. I have pipelines.media, which we purchased for the second level of pipelines, mastermind.io, pipelines.academy, which is another one that we purchased for the same thing, horizons.academy. We purchased this last year, and we'll probably do some stuff with that. But I wanted to grab to the moon.academy just to mark the occasion. I think it'll be fun to leave something up there. And so in each of these things, in each of these hosted zones is where I can manage the DNS records for each of these things. I can point them at certain places. And so I'll click into tothemoon.academy, and we can take a look at what currently exists and look around and see what we have available to us. So we're in here to manage our DNS. And so currently it says I have 2 records. All right. The first one here is an NS record. This is for name servers. These are the servers which are going to house our DNS information. The information that's input into this hosted zone is where this stuff is going to reside. It's going to get put into these systems. There's so many of them because there's redundancy and there's backups and all kinds of different things. Depending on where you are, it might route to a different place. And notice, they're all ns some numbers .aws DNS another number .net or .com or .co.uk. These are all around the world. Okay. And an SOA, I actually completely forgot what an SOA record was. Let's see, DNS SOA record. So there are oh wait, what happened to my my camera just cut off. Maybe it did overheat. Hold on. I'm fixing it. Don't worry. Or did it get unplugged? Oh no, it's back. Okay. All right. There we go. Okay. All right. Maybe it overheated. If it did overheat, it is what it is. And maybe we'll get a fan on it one day. But we're back. I might have to, if it causes too many problems, we'll have to put up our Idris Elba picture as we usually do to make sure that everyone knows that Idris is the one who's teaching this, which is I am Idris. If you all didn't know, that's the name I go by when I play in my movies. But while I'm with you all, I'll do that. So start of authority record. This is where you get the administrative information about the domain zone. I very seldomly mess with these anymore. So I used to always have to mess with these things. They kind of get generated by default, and you don't really need to mess with them too much nowadays. And so you just kind of leave it as it is. All right. Definitely just leave it as it is. So it starts out with 2 records for you, but nothing else is really here. So how do you connect up? Let's say we have a website that's running. How do we connect it up to this thing? Let's do that first. Let's actually get something up and running. We're gonna go to the dashboard really quick. Let's go into EC2 real quick and spin up an EC2 instance. Let's get a quick site running. We might already have a site running, and then we will point this together so we can have a full website at To The Moon. And so I'll spin up a quick instance. Launch instance, not Amazon Linux. I'm gonna keep it to Ubuntu just because Amazon Linux is really good. Amazon Linux has a bunch of really good stuff on it for the things that you would normally want to do. It's a really good AMI to work off of. The problem is enabling so it's a Red Hat based distribution. It has the Yum package manager, but to enable things it has its own internal repository for stuff, and it gets weird trying to enable stuff. Stuff is there, but instead of having to download it, you just got to enable it and stuff. And I never really took the time to learn what that meant, or what's in there. So I didn't do anything with it, but let's go ahead and add, where's HTTP at? Right here. And we'll make this really quick. Launch. I think this is the key we have on our server. I think, not 100% sure, but we are about to find out if this is the key. It's probably the best supported AMI. It's the best supported AMI it is really well supported by Amazon, obviously. And yes, for a lot of the workloads and things that people do in Amazon, it's very well supported. It's a good AMI. I'm not hating on it at all. Like I said, they just do a couple of different of things that are different from the normal status quo. But for the most part, it's a CentOS AMI. But yeah, it is super well supported. It gets updates pretty often. All right, so let's give this a name really quick, and we'll call this DNS, or let's call it R53 site or server, whatever. We'll save this here. We'll log into it really fast. Sandbox.mastermind.io. We'll hop in here. And do I have this AWS keys? All right, this is the key that I have. So I'm gonna log into this server real quick from here. So let me grab the IP address, the IPv4 address. So I'm gonna copy this. I'm gonna go back over to here. SSH. Remember, if you want to log into an EC2 instance, remember the way that you have to do that is using SSH keys. And so we're gonna specify this key, and I'm using Ubuntu, so the user is Ubuntu. Get logged in for the very first time, and we're good to go. I'm gonna do an update. And let's see, where's the, I'm tripping. And app install Nginx. We'll get a web server installed on here really quick, just so we have something serving. And once the web server is here, we'll be able to just stick a site somewhere and we can point this at it. So our website is going to simply have to the moon rockets, you know, because we got to have not rocket emoji. I want to see a to the moon me. Yeah, I want the Wall Street bets icon. Let's take this to the moon meme. Let's see what's here. Okay. All right. Let's use. I like the one with I like the one with AMC where the astronaut gets there. This one, I like this. Well, why is this got me a Khalifa on there? We can't use this one. we can't use that one. Why is that the one that comes up? I mean, we can use that one. It's completely fine, but all right, it doesn't really matter right now. We're just gonna copy this image for now. And now somebody clipped. I mean, do what you gotta do. Do what you gotta do. Okay. Oh no. Oh, dash. Did I not do? Could not be open lock file. Oh. Well, that's fine. Let's get Nginx installed. So luckily we'll have some HTML already there and already ready for us to be able to input an image right where we need it. And let's go ahead and let's vim var www HTML index HTML deb at the very top underneath this. Oh, whoops, didn't let me do that. So sudo, and I can't see line numbers. The one thing that sucks about my Vim skills now, and I was getting better at Vim, and the problem is now that I started to utilize other features of Vim, I suck when I don't have, like, if I don't have line numbers and I don't have all the things that I like, it never really works for me the way that I want it to. And I don't know how do you do an image tag? I'm not a web developer. Let's see. Image tag HTML. Let's see, here we go. There we go. And we're gonna take it And we're gonna leave the all Texas girl in jacket because we're too lazy to type that out. And let's paste this here. Can you do a set or whatever it's called? Probably, but I don't know what the set is to add line numbers. I'll learn one day. But see inside, and I can change that, and I can use Windows. Again, I'm gonna shout this from the rooftop forever. Windows has this really amazing, keyboard clipboard manager, which is phenomenal, and I really like it. There's a new tab, and it'll allow us to easily, recall what we need to recall. And I'll paste this in there. We'll save it. And now if you go to the IP address here, broadcast, that's not any of these. It's not this internal. It usually shows up during this, doesn't it? Well, I'll go back to what it was. Oh, that's the Linode one. The Linode one shows it, but this one doesn't show it. Not a problem. I'll grab it from the console. There's also other ways to get it. You can also grab it from the AWS CLI if you want to do that. But it takes a little bit of work because you're going to have to parse out all the information from what you have. So grab the IP address again. And now if you all go to this, and if you go there, you should be able to get to the website. What? There we go. All right, there we go. Okay, so this is our site right now. This is our site right here. What happens if we, hold on, I don't like this. Let's change some stuff real quick. Let's not be too lazy. Let's we can be lazy. Ooh, can you see inside brackets? No, you can't see inside brackets. That's trash. Makes sense though. Welcome to the moon. All right, and then let's remove the width and the height requirements here. And see if that still works. I hope it works. All right, well, okay, I broke it. I mean, that's worse. That's worse. So maybe let's go back real quick and let me change it. Okay, let's also talk about you want to learn some more of them stuff. So you can see, so I also use the I learned how to use the F key, and I was getting my muscle memory down for using the F key here. The F key allows you to jump to different the first iterations of different letters and stuff, but I use a Vim plugin called Quickscope, which highlights it for me, and I don't have that here, so I can't see it well. So I'm going to try to jump over to the 5. Well, wait, why is it not? It's like not. What? Oh, something's going on here. This is not to do. Oh man, it's like not. It's like not. Oh, what is going on? Hold on. Why is it, does anyone know? I've never seen this before. Why is it, oh, it's just showing up for me. Okay, so if you do something like F5, there we go. It'll go over here to the width and the height. I'm gonna make the width, let me make it 1000. And we'll leave it at doing that. Yeah, it's freaking out on my computer. It's actually freaking out on my computer. All right, so, okay, whatever. We have a site here. You can try to go to it. We have it. Phenomenal. We have our Welcome to the Moon website, but to get to it, you had to put this IP address in there, and that's not, having to memorize that is not a good thing. How would we set this up in Route53? How would we point our domain at this system? And so we'll go to Route53, and it's worth noting here that you can only have one A record or one host record, whether it be IPv4 or IPv6. You can have the pair of them because they're different protocols, but you can only have one of each for a given domain or subdomain. So right now we are working off of the what's called the root or the apex domain. The apex domain is to the moon.academy. This is the apex of the domain. It's the root of the domain. But when you see www dot, that is simply what's called a subdomain. You can make a subdomain anything you want. Again, it could be water bottle dot to the moon dot academy. You could point that somewhere, and you can point some www dot to the moon dot academy somewhere different, or whatever you want to do. You can create unlimited subdomains underneath these domains, but you can only have one A record. Well, you can only have one. Yeah, kinda. You don't have one for right now. Your A record has to point somewhere for each individual thing. What www is a subdomain? Yes, it is a subdomain. All right, so let's create one. Let's create a new record. And here's the button right here. It's nice and orange for you, kind of stands out. I like this UX. This is kind of nice for me. They need a dark mode, but it's okay. We'll go ahead and create this. So now we can create our this has changed. This has changed a lot. Okay, let's have a good time. Let's learn. This has changed a whole lot. So quick create looks like it's what it's on at first. And so we can use different routing policies. So this is where I was talking about where you could have different type of routing policies. I did forget to include, I don't know how I forgot to include this in the slide. One great thing about AWS is you can use failover. So the same kind of way that in load balancing, we learned that you have a pool of resources and it runs some health checks. And when it runs the health checks, if something starts to fail, it pulls it out of the pool of things it can serve to. DNS can do a similar thing. You can set up automatic failover at the DNS level. So let's say you have a bunch of resources and your whole system is set up to be served out of US East 1. US East 1. Everything's over there. And I don't know, there's a giant earthquake and US East 1 literally falls into the center of the earth and is gone. You can set up a DNS failover to happen to where there are health checks, and when things can't be served to a certain place, it can reroute it to other places. It can reroute the entire DNS path and where DNS is responding to a completely different place. It's a pretty cool thing that you can do. Again, similar to like load balancing as well. So leave it on simple routing. You don't really need to do anything else here. Now, record name. So record name is going to be the domain, the part of the domain or the subdomain or main domain that you're going to be working with. So right now, it's recommending that I put in something like blog as an example, but I just want to work on the root domain. To the moon.academy is what I want to work on right now. And so I'm going to leave it completely blank. Here's where you select your record type. Yes, there are more records than what we talked about, but again, today's to understand a little bit about what DNS does, but to also be able to understand that Route53 is a tool that's going to be able to allow you to solve DNS things that you need to do. We want to set up an A record, okay? We'll set up an A record, and here's the value. Here is where I would put the IP address, and this would work. This is okay to do. You can do this, 100%. That will work, but unfortunately, so one way DNS, one of the problems with DNS is it, because it's a kind of worldwide system, and we're gonna dive a little deeper into what's happening once we implement this. Because it's kind of a worldwide system, DNS takes time to propagate. The DNS information that you store takes time to get set around the world, and it can take a lot of time for you to update DNS. If you make mistakes, if you point something, if you do something incorrect in DNS, it can take a lot of time. It's possible for that to be mitigated. And so using this will mean that if we change servers, if we tore our server down and we need to point it to something else, if we changed it, it might take a while for this thing to get updated. This is where alias records are really good for. But so what it allows you to do is allow some fancy stuff to happen in the background, where this kind of gets set up to point to this background endpoint that you don't know about inside of AWS. But you can route the traffic to a specific AWS resource. So instead of putting in an IP address, the alias allows me to alias to something like an EC2 instance. And so I've never used this. Oh, another record on hosted zone. So I could point to, so I can't point to an EC2 instance because it's going to be the IP address, but I could point to something like a load balancer, my load balancer address or something like that, which would show up right here if I wanted, or CloudFront distribution, or to S3 bucket if I wanted, VPC endpoint. There's a bunch of different stuff. I can point to different things, but I don't have a load balancer set up, so I am going to have to put in the IP address. I wasn't really thinking, because normally I'm like, normally you're going to be setting up these EC2 instances behind load balancers, like very, very often, more times than not. And that's when you can point it to something like that. But we are going to have to not make an alias record and simply put this in here. And I guess we'll have to keep this server up. Okay, so TTL. This is the time to live. This is how long, we talked about this a little bit when we talked about CDNs and CloudFront. This is how long the record will live before how long it'll kind of cache before it'll do another lookup. Okay, we're not going to dive too deep into this because TTL works. It works in an interesting way in DNS, but not super important. But the longer you set it, the more problematic it might be for you to push out updates to DNS. But also DNS lookups are not free. They're also not that cheap. If you have a lot of people visiting your site, you don't want. You kind of want that data to be saved places. You don't want requests coming back into this because it does cost for a certain amount of lookups to be done. And so you can kind of set how long they kind of recommend, so they recommend up to 2 days, but this is in seconds. So what's 300 seconds with 5 minutes, something like that. But so we'll leave it at that. This is fine. We're not going to get enough lookups for this to be a problem, but we will absolutely go ahead and just create the record here. So we have all the information here. And this is going, if we don't put anything here, it's going to be for the root domain. It's just going to be for tothemoon.academy. And so I will create that record. And this will take a little bit of time to, again, to propagate. So if we do right now, if we do tothemoon.academy, it might work. It might work immediately. And it does. It might not work for you immediately. The first propagation is probably going to be the fastest. But if I do there are sites for this. You can do you can Google DNS propagation, and the first one that comes up, you can put it in to the moon.academy, and I can search that record and see where it's propagated to. And you can see here, it's checking in all these other places and it's saying, hey, I can't find these things yet. This record, oh, that's because I did to the noon. That makes sense. That it hasn't propagated at all anywhere yet. Okay, so it's green. It's green everywhere. That's nice, except for Dallas and France right now. It might take a little time in different places, but it hasn't propagated there yet. We might do it again and it might be good. See, now Dallas is fine. If we were to change this, it'd probably cause some problems, and it would take a little while for it would show that it's propagated everywhere, but it would still show the old IP address if we were to change the IP address. So think about that when you are doing stuff. That DNS can take a long time to be updated around the world. You may start to see it here immediately or very quickly, but it may take a while for it to propagate somewhere else. And so we added a record. And now if you go to tothemoon.academy, you can get to into this spot. Is TTL even listened to anymore? I think so. I should be. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe it's not. I'm assuming it still is. It used to be. So yeah, we have our site and now it's set up. So that is how you point your domain at you tell people how to get to your domain. You tell what systems these things are lying on. And so right now we're pointed directly at an EC2 instance. But if we were using something like a load balancer, remember that load balancer is the entryway into your application, and it spreads out the load amongst a server pool or a system pool. And so that will be the connection point instead of a single EC2 instance. Or we might point to CloudFront. So if we were using CloudFront, we're using the service CloudFront, CloudFront would provide you a DNS name. So if we go to my CloudFront right here, because I have one set up already. That's an awesome pick. What's up, Goku? How are you doing? If I go to my CloudFront, so say this, the website for academy.mastermind.io, this is behind AWS CloudFront. And What it gives you is, this is the domain name they'll give you. They will give you a domain name. And so if we go to this CloudFront endpoint, you can get to the Academy site based off of this endpoint. You are simply hitting the endpoint for CloudFront directly. You can hit that and that will take you to the academy.mastermind.io website. But academy.mastermind.io has an alias record that points to this to this domain name. It points to this domain name. It just has an alias address that points right here to this domain name. And that's how the CDNs work. Most CDNs work. They will give you an endpoint to point your stuff to, another domain or an IP address to point your traffic to. And so when people look up, when your computer looks up academy.mastermind.io, it's actually returned. It's actually, you're actually going to get this information. And then your computer in turn is going to look up the information for this domain, and it's going to get the actual IP address and it'll send to where it needs to send to. So there can be some layers to this. There could be some interesting layering that you have to do to get certain things to work. But it's also worth noting that right now, if we were to go to www.tothemoon.com or tothemoon.academy, that won't load. It won't load at all because there's no DNS record for www. So you must set that up. It's also worth noting that we don't have to point www to the same thing as anything else. We can point this wherever we want it. In any other system we want to point it to, we can point it to somewhere else, but we can go right back into the Route53 dashboard. And we can just also add a record for that, add another A record for that. We can edit it. If we want to edit the zone, we don't need to do that. I just kind of clicking around because I've never seen this new interface. We want to add another record, and we simply put www in here. We'll put our IP address back in here, not that. That's a Control V or Windows key V. This, we can leave everything the same, and we can simply create that DNS record. And now, if you go to www, it should work. Well, it might take a little bit. Come on. And so because there's already records out there, again, this might take a little bit to do. And I actually don't think you can check DNS propagation on a subdomain. I don't think. Maybe you can. Okay. Okay, I mean, most places. Okay, it's going through. It's going through. It's just not working for me yet. But it might be... okay, maybe it's working for you. It's not working for me yet. Eventually, this will come. Oh, there's a typo. Check if there's a typo. To the moon, www.tothemoon.academy. No, it looks fine. Just simply DNS is not there. I could actually check DNS by doing something like this. There's some cool tools you can use from the command line. One, for all of you who don't really care to have to do it from the command line, there is something called MX Toolbox. It's just mxtoolbox.com. This allows you to do domain name lookups. The lookups, those phone book lookups, you can actually do that here on MX Lookup and click the little DNS lookup thing here. And I can type in, to the moon.academy. And I can look it up and I could get IP address information. Check that out. There's an A record for this, and I can do www. And I can see that, hey, this is showing up for www. Everything looks good here. But if you ever need to do that, you can look it up that way. Some ways to do it in Linux are to do this, are to do something called dig. Dig is one, so I can dig to the moon.academy. And it will give me the output right here of the A record. It's of type A record. And the IP address is right there, so you can do that. If you need to ever look up any type of record, I could also look up other records. I could look up MX records. I could give back whatever kind of records I want. You can look up those phone book. You can look them up phone book style using a lot of different tools. Do you make multiple records CNAME as a redundancy? So there's more than one. You can. Yes, you can. You can provide multiple records. It's possible to. It's definitely possible to. Most people don't really need to do it. Like if we did one on like Yahoo or like Google, you'll get multiple ones. You don't need to do this. You likely won't need to do this. But it is something that you could do. 100%. It's something that you could do, but there's a little bit of there's a significant amount of infrastructure that needs to be put into this to pull it off. So that's why I say, like, right now it's just one, but you can do multiple ones. It is possible to do multiple ones, but a lot of times this doesn't really mean much unless there's something underneath. It's possible when setting up something like this that it's in some services you can weight them, so that's good. And other systems, like if one of these is having problems, if you don't have underlying things to handle that, people still may get sent to this. It's kind of a weird redundancy pattern unless you're doing something underneath to account for it. But yeah, absolutely, there are a lot of sites, a lot of the bigger organizations will do exactly that. With regards to TTL, it's also worth noting that you can purge, flush a public DNS resolver cache like Google or Cloudflare. Yeah, you can purge those caches. What's up, G Billingsley? How are you doing today? All right. Ooh, that was a good sip of water right there. Okay, so real quick, let's draw a picture of how DNS works, and then we will move on to our next set of things that we need to learn about tonight. So DNS, we have another drawing on this elsewhere, but we want to see it live. It's easier to draw it together. And so this is how DNS works. This is you, and you're super happy at your computer. You are online doing your best to get a PlayStation 5. All you want to do is get a PlayStation 5 or an Xbox. Your boy prefers Xbox, but it's okay. I know all of you out there are PlayStation users. You all are a lot of Xbox, Microsoft haters. It's okay. You know, once a hater, always a hater, I say. So it's okay. You all can hate all you want. But let's say you're out here and you are like, man, I need a PlayStation. So you're gonna go look on, maybe you're gonna look up, I don't know. People are seeming to have a lot of luck off of Walmart.com. So you want to go to Walmart.com, okay? You type that into your browser and you say, this is you. You're happy because you think you're gonna win one today. You're optimistic in your goal for the day, but you wanna go to Walmart.com. How does your computer know where to go for Walmart.com? Here is what it does. The first thing it does is the first place it checks for DNS is, and I'll do a little one right here, local lookup. Okay, it will look right here, right on your computer. It'll look locally if it knows where Walmart.com is. Have you ever been there before? DNS gets cached. That's part of why that TTL matters as well. But it's going to cache to your system, and it's going to save that because it doesn't want to have to go. For optimal experience, it doesn't want to have to keep going to make requests to figure out what IP address to go to. If it's been there, it's going to go ahead and it's going to save it locally into your local cache. So it's going to look on your laptop first to see if you have that information available. It says, nope, I don't have that information there. It's going to head over. It's going to make a request now to recursive name servers. Okay. So now it's going to go to this server right here. And I'll just put name server 1 right here. Name server. All right, and so this name server right here is going to generally be hosted by a lot of times it's hosted by your internet service provider. So Xfinity or Comcast might have these running, or Verizon or whatever. It'll go to an initial spot and it'll say, hey, do you have the information that I need? I'm looking for Walmart.com. For something like Walmart, it's for sure going to have it, but it might be an obscure website like tothemoon.academy. And it's like, I have no idea what that is. Let me go even farther. And then it'll go to something here. These are called like root servers. There's only a couple of these and they're big and they're important. Sometimes they're called root servers. Sometimes they're called authoritative name servers as well. And here, the information will be here, okay? It will be here. And then this information will get passed back. All right, back to your computer, and then your computer will know, it'll pass back 123.456.780. Sure, that's not an IP address that's gonna pass back, but it takes Walmart.com in, it looks up the translation, it'll get passed back to your computer. Now that your computer knows what the IP address is, your computer says, hey, I'm gonna go straight to this IP address. I'm gonna go straight there, and now you're gonna end up on Walmart, where Walmart set up their servers to be, and you're gonna be able to see or possibly grab that PS5. That was a terrible drawing of a PS5, and that data is going to come on back to your computer. And this is essentially how DNS works. You know, it's a roundabout thing, and it works. If you have a TTL for a record set to something like 24 hours, you can make a change to the zone and then flush the purge DNS of a range of public resolvers and make the request updated record free zone. Yes, you can. You can absolutely. You can do that. It gets difficult. That gets difficult at scale and doesn't usually work how you want it to work at scale. But yes, you can do that. You can 100% do that. Cool. This is how DNS works. Now you know how the internet works. And again, how do you solve this? The way that you solve this is with Route53. That's the tool that solves this thing. So does Route53 communicate with name servers? Is that why it takes a while for name servers to update DNS records? So one, Route53 essentially updates Amazon's name servers. So Route53 is kind of your interface to complete DNS. So Route53, when you make changes, it actually inserts those zones on AWS's name server. So AWS has name servers, and it doesn't reach out to it's not pushing information to other name servers. Your name servers end up getting queried for information based on what's in those root records and things. And so yeah, it's not pushing information anywhere, but things are communicating with those name servers that you created to get that information. Fix the website. Let's see. Ooh, okay. All right. Here we go. There we go. We're taking this. We're gonna fix this website then. I like that. You know, ain't nothing like a nice and easy copy paste job. So first, I'm gonna break the website. var HTML. All right, I'm gonna empty it. Oh, sudo. Whoa, permission denied. How you gonna permission deny my sudo? Okay, whatever. All right, okay, it's fine. I don't need you to give me the ability to do this, because I can just do it myself. And I'll just remove everything, and then I'll paste. Oh, that's disgusting, but I'm gonna save it anyway. Oh, actually, no, I'm not. Let's undo. Let's :set paste. I paste it. There we go. Much better. All right, let's refresh the page and see what we got. www does not work for me. Am I typing this in wrong? No? Okay, you did fix the website. Thank you so much. We fixed it. We 100% fixed it. Very, very nice. Can't sudo a file redirect. The redirect is out. Oh, yeah. Correct. Gotcha. That makes sense. That makes perfect sense. I don't know why I missed that. But there we go. It's fixed. Thank you very much. I appreciate that second billing cycle. Phenomenal. We in there like swimwear. We're storming the beach. This is really funny because I just watched. I just got done watching. What's that series called? What's the old World War II series? Band of Brothers. I just watched Band of Brothers for the first time. I just got finished with it the other day. I've been watching it while I was working. So kind of interesting. Pretty good show. The pacing of it was weird. It was like amazing in the beginning, and then it got super slow. But yeah, it was pretty cool. Definitely. So now I'm gonna watch the Pacific. I heard the Pacific wasn't quite as good, but I thought Band of Brothers was pretty good. there's some weird musical choices for like the intro, like the recap of last episode is way too long. First off, the introduction music is way too long, but yeah, it's fine. It was a really good series. So I enjoyed it. So I watched Band of Brothers. I mean, the Pacific next. Band of Brothers is amazing. How are you gonna slay the Huns with Dustin your jump wings? Hey, I mean, first off, let me just tell you all again. I'm not a tough guy at all. When I watch stuff like that, I really do. I'm usually in awe of like how people have done the things that they've done, you know, whether good or bad. I'm just like, man, look, if I see a spider, I freak out and I go beg my wife to come save me from said spider. You know, and you don't got to be a tough guy, okay? There's no reason here. You know, I'm scared of the spiders. I know that me on D-Day, there was zero chance that I'm jumping out of that plane. You know, it's just gonna have to be over for me right there. To be honest, it's pretty crazy to watch. To think that people could go through things like that is pretty wild to me. Yeah, it's pretty wild. Yes, marry someone to catch all the bugs for you, 100%, 100%. Yes, I'm not afraid of. So I have gotten better with spiders. I used to be deathly afraid of spiders. The reason why I gained my my fear of arachnids was literally I was in the basement of my house when I was growing up, cleaning the basement with my mother, and I saw the biggest spider I had ever seen. It was on a clothing rack and it was on some clothes, and then it just slowly like creeped, like very ominously around the clothes, and then we couldn't find it. I looked for it, and before that, I was like, I didn't like bugs, but I wasn't afraid of spiders, and that wrecked me for some reason. I like froze, like in fear, and ever since then, I was super scared. We have tons of spiders where we live now. Like the backyard, I don't. Like we get the backyard gets tons of gigantic spiders. They're in the house sometimes, and now I've gotten to the point where like I could be in the same space as them. I don't kill them. I don't kill them because they catch all the other stuff that's scary to me. And so I let them be. And you know, yeah, see, this is why I want to come to Australia so bad, but like y'all have different kinds of spiders, man. Y'all have different kinds of everything, to be honest. And I don't know if I can do it. You know, you want to come there, you get in the ocean, there's 47 things that can kill you. Immediately, I got sharks and all the kinds of crazy stuff, and y'all got I think don't y'all have like coral reefs that can like murder you? I don't know, man. I'm good on that. Funnel web will kill an adult with a 1 hour. See, man, I'm not ready for any of this. I'm never gonna lie and act like I'm a tough guy. I don't like spiders, and if I can avoid them, you know, I let them be. I don't kill them no more. My wife kills them though. She's a savage. She'll do it. She has no problem, you know. She's the spider queen, spider murdering queen. That's okay. I need that in my life sometimes because I don't like other bugs. And y'all don't have huntsman spiders? No, I don't think so. I don't know. Hold on. Do we? Please, I hope we don't. First of all, let me see what it is. We have wolf spiders, I think. Oh no. You gave me what is called the heebie-jeebies. I don't like this at all. I don't like this in the least bit. I couldn't handle this. So we have like wolf spiders. Oh, it's bothering me. The pictures are bothering. Oh, I'm good. Ugh. Okay. All right. That's free. Now I just feel like there's like stuff all around me. Yeah, it's all good. The Midwest, you only have to deal with mosquitoes. Yeah. And so I'm hoping that like in my younger days, bugs weren't so much of a problem to me, minus the spider thing. And so the cicadas are coming back this year. Apparently I was just informed of this. I remember I was in middle school the last time they came out, and I remember there were so many of them that like they were weird at first, but then you just got so used to them, you just pick them up and stuff. We filled an entire Dorito bag in middle school, entire big Dorito bag with cicadas, and we brought it in and we dropped it. And we didn't drop it on purpose. We did not drop it on purpose. We brought it in and we dropped it, and they were everywhere. And I just remember how freaked out people were. And like, luckily at that point I was like, we didn't do it on purpose. I can't remember why we were doing it. There was like 6 or 7 of us. Like it was, I don't know. That was bad. No, we used to do stupid stuff like that. That was dumb. But luckily we were able to get them up and get them out of there. But I'm kind of worried about it a little bit. I feel like in my older age, I'm gonna be freaked out by them a little bit, but it's all good. How about rats that hitch rides on subways? Rats don't bother me. Rats don't bother me because they're big animals. Like rats and mice, I'm not bothered by rats or mice, to be honest. But they are gross. But like, I'm fine with them. I think you set up for the WWW, which I don't think you set up for, didn't I? I could have sworn I set up for WWW. What is this? There we go. www.tothemoon.academy. Yeah, frequency up. I did that. I might have done something wrong there. Is it still not working? Well, like what is something is weird with my, I can't type now. It's like trying to use dictation to select field. Okay, all right. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. Okay, off the screen, back onto the screen. And when I hit, my keyboard, y'all, is doing something crazy. I don't know what's I don't know what's happening. Hold on. Maybe it's the maybe it is my okay, so Windows key works. Okay, there we go. That was super weird. That was control. Maybe that was it. I don't know. It's working right now. So I think it might, sometimes I think it has to do with the it's not tothemoon.com. It's www.tothemoon.academy. Okay, yeah, there we go. Could have been control. That was super weird. I think sometimes it's my, I'm using an application called Synergy to share my mouse and my keyboard between my main computer and the Surface Pro that's right here. And so I think sometimes it gets in a weird state, like in the transition phase. But all right, so that's Route53, DNS. Yeah, there you go. Now we're gonna dive into some deployment strategies. If we have time, we will do maybe we'll set up a green-blue deployment or something. Yeah, we can do that real quick because we already have a site set up. I like that, actually. We can do a green-blue. But this is going to be it's helpful to understand how you may deploy things onto not even just on the AWS systems, but these deployment strategies will help you understand how to leverage different systems in AWS to be able to get things deployed in the way that you want. And so someone before had asked about systems design, and these different deployment strategies are going to be things that you're going to have to make considerations for in the design of your systems and understanding which services to use and how you want to use them. And so deployment strategies, the essence of strategy is to choose what not to do. That's not gonna lie to you, that's been a super helpful thing to me. That's some advice that I got for decision making as I was kind of moving into more leadership roles. Is spending time figuring out what not to do can be a good way to be a little bit more confident in your decision making, especially when you're starting out. And so software deployment is all the activities that make a software on a system available to use. And so what we're trying to do with all this cloud computing, one of the big things with AWS is we're either trying to utilize these resources to do some type of processing, or we want to serve up, make available some type of application. It's all software focused, to be honest, and that's the goal of deployment. So what are some ways we do this? And although the thing that we're talking about here is specifically around the deployment of the software, this also, because of the way that the cloud works and because of the methodologies we now use to deploy software, this all goes into the cloud as well, because we can utilize our infrastructure in the same way that we utilize our applications now. So this is super helpful to know as you are diving into your cloud career and you're trying to understand what a lot of these services are for. The first method of deploying things is to do a recreate. This is a recreate, and this is destroying the current version of what you have, and then deploying the next version. And so we say version, maybe we have we have an application and it's set up in a certain way, and maybe we're deploying a new version of the application, but we're also deploying a new version of the underlying infrastructure. Maybe we need a new CPU, a bigger CPU to process changes that have been made or something like that, or we've changed the underlying Amazon machine image to have some other things that we need. And so the recreate is simply a simple setup to do. It's kind of the easiest to get started with because it's how you could do things right out of the box. You destroy what's there and you recreate it with all the new things that you need. You don't need to worry about the state of the application because you are resetting the complete state of the application. But the big drawback to this is downtime. It's a pretty big problem. Okay, yeah, this gift, she's recreating the thing out of nowhere. And that's kind of what you would do if you were employing this strategy. This is not a commonly used strategy. If you were going to use this, it would have to be on something that you didn't care about. So we've been using this for pretty much every day when we need to just randomly create something new. We've been destroying our stuff at the end and recreating it when we need it on the next class or whatever. But this is a way that you might decide to deploy something. And again, you don't have to do any kind of orchestration around it. You just deploy it when you need it. But downtime is probably the biggest problem here. Highlander, or the Big Bang. You might have a bunch of systems you might have a bunch of systems set up to serve your application. And when we're in AWS, when we're doing these things, we're managing all these things together. We're trying to figure out, what to do around them. And you can design your stuff around this Big Bang or the Highlander method of deployment. And so this is updating all of your systems at one time. That's why it's called the Big Bang. And so imagine you have a bunch of EC2 instances and maybe there's a critical security vulnerability that needs to be updated. And maybe it requires a restart, maybe it doesn't, it probably doesn't, but maybe it does. And so it's pretty common, simple setup. You just kind of hop in and do the updates as needed. And so this is both for software and for infrastructure. We're gonna, I want you to be thinking about them in tandem. So you might be thinking about this as like, hey, we have a new version of the application that we are going to now upload to the systems that already exist. That could be one thing. But again, a lot of times your infrastructure is now tied in with your applications, especially in the cloud. And for this, you would just push out updates all together. Again, this is very similar to the recreate. It's very similar to the recreate, but usually, but you're not tearing down anything. You are updating the things that exist in place. And usually, again, there's downtime for these things. Usually, it means, hey, if we're doing everything at once, should the services require restarting, maybe the downtime is super short. Maybe there's not any downtime, but generally, this type of deployment model requires a bit of downtime. I always thought systems design was an abstract concept, not hands-on activities based on the resources that's out there. Yes, you are correct about what systems design is, but when you are systems design, you have to take into account the activities that you are going to have to do to be able to properly design that system. You have to take into account these specific tangible activities that you would need to do to be able to build your system in the way that you would want to build it. You can design a system without taking into account these things, but ultimately that doesn't mean anything until you start to take into account these things that do exist. It's definitely a more abstract topic of how your systems are set up to support the things that you need done, and understanding a lot of these things is going to go into that process. Like, it's very hard to do any systems design without knowing, like, right now, if you were to come to me and say, hey, we have this type of application, and we need to serve this many people, and we need to have this kind of uptime, and we need, we got to start designing the system. I need to know, okay, like, do I have free range to deploy it? How are we planning on hosting this thing? Is this going to be a containerized application? Is this going to be is this going to be a serverless application? Does it need to run on a server? What about deployments? Do we need no downtime deployments? Because if we do, it automatically removes these first two steps. We can't do a recreate. We can't do Highlander Big Bang. That also determines the way our application is packaged up. It'll take things off the table if there are things that we cannot do. Maybe we're running something that can't be containerized. There are things that still run that can't be containerized and things like that. Maybe something that doesn't work for serverless. Maybe we got to figure out these things. All of this stuff goes into what that design is. So 100%. All right, so recreate Highlander. One's tearing it down and bringing it back up. One is updating everything in place. One of the downsides is they both provide usually provide a significant risk for how long your application is down for. Another one is Canary. All right, so Canary deployments. This is a good one. It's a little bit morbid, but you cut over a little bit of traffic, normally by weight. Okay, so you cut over a little bit of traffic. You taking it back to, if you were in any of the sessions for the last session for pipelines, we're talking about observability. You cut over a little bit and you observe, you watch, you collect information on what's happening. When you are confident that things are working well, then you cut over the rest of traffic. What do we say when we mean cut over? Okay. Remember, we're talking about load balancers. Go back to what we learned about load balancers. And we learned that we could do round robin by weight, or we could do a bunch of different things by weight. But we can start to say, all right, let's take 0.5, let's cut down the traffic in half and send it over to, let's update server number 3 and send over 25% of the traffic to server 3. Let's test it out. Let's see if we're getting any errors. Let's see how the application works. Okay. And we watch it, we make sure everything looks good. And once everything feels good, we switch up, we update the rest and switch over the traffic accordingly. Okay. We roll out the rest. It's nice, but the rollout is slow. All right. The rollout is very slow. Or can be pretty slow for you to get everything deployed. Takes time. You got to watch, what's going on. It's pretty easy to abort though. It's pretty easy to roll back off of your Canary deployment. If you start to see issues, there's only a portion of traffic going to the server that's having problems, and you can simply roll it back. Push all your traffic back to the other servers, fix the current server back to its current to the working state, and deliver traffic there again. And you can also collect metrics on a small subset of users. This is pretty effective in what you are doing. I like the old scream test for checking if a server is still aligned. Just unplug it and see who screams. That's a good one. That's a real thing. That is 100% a real thing. We've done that. I've done that in my career a bunch of times. Not physically unplugging it usually, but definitely doing that. Definitely like, hey, we don't know who's using this product. Like, why is it still up? It's, cut it off, see who complains. That's a real thing. Can you force a percentage of traffic to another specific server in AWS? Yeah, absolutely. So you can do it in a number of different ways. You can use it through AWS's load balancing pools. So you can do it through your pools using AWS load balancers. You can also do it via DNS if you need to. You can do it in Route53 if you need to. I wouldn't recommend that way because it takes a little bit longer to kind of make some of that stuff happen. But yeah, you can do it yourself manually if you set up a proxy or a load balancer via Nginx or something. There are a number of ways to send just a certain amount of traffic in AWS. Yep, the AWS load balancing tools have that ability. The reason why it's called a Canary deployment is because in mining, okay, when mining was a crazy big thing, what they would do to determine whether or not a mine was dangerous would they'd have a canary in a cage, and they walk around with a canary in the cage, they send it in, and if the canary started to go crazy and then die, they know that there was an issue in there and that they should not go deeper into the mines. And so that's kind of what we're doing here. We're sending off one of the servers first. We're holding up one of the servers as our canary, and we're waiting to see if it dies or not. And if we know it doesn't die, if we can watch to see that it survives, then we can go further into the mine and deploy elsewhere. But yeah, brutal ways to figure things out. 100%, effective, but pretty brutal. I agree with you. But yeah, that is what a Canary deployment is. It's so interesting because I've known what a Canary deployment was for a long time, and I looked this up the first time we ran Horizons because I did not know why it was called a canary deployment. I was like, I don't know why it's called that. I know what it is, but like, I just thought that was the name of the deployment. And someone posted an article, and yeah, canary in the coal mine, 100%. It's pretty crazy, but also makes a lot of sense. A/B testing. This one's great. This is very much like canary deployments. You cut over a little bit of traffic, but instead of doing it by weight and collecting metrics, you are doing this by a scenario. And so we'll talk about what this means in a second, but so a scenario is going to be, some people do it by all kinds of stuff, by demographics, by time of access. It can be almost for anything. And you send a subset of your traffic to site A or to application A, and you send the other subset to application B. And there are different versions of the exact same site. Actually, that is not the right slide deck. That's the first slide deck. Let's update slides really quick. And let me get you this link. Whoops, move. Anyone with link, copy link, done. Azure uses canaries. Yeah, I mean, canaries are real. Definitely real for sure. Like I said, it's a good way of doing things. So, but A/B testing, you send a subset of your users over to scenario A, the other over to scenario B. Once we figure out things are going well, we'll cut the rest over. So this is good for a number of reasons. To do it, you need a smart load balancer. So you need a load balancer that can do some cool stuff. There are a lot of services that will do this for you. Why would you want to use something like this? This is often used, especially in UX and UI practices, to determine what version of a web page is better. So, a lot of times companies will be doing some development and they're not sure what'll get more clicks. So they'll set up these scenarios to where subset A is going to get the original web page, and they're going to track metrics on that page. And then they're going to give the other subset of users everything on traffic B, everything on application B, and they're going to compare those metrics to see which one's better for them, and then apply that universally across the board once they get some information. It controls traffic over the distribution, and it is pretty difficult here to get good observability into what's happening, just due to the orchestration of what's going on. And sometimes it can be difficult to make sense if the changes are more than just like visual. Like if there are actual differences in the systems, it can be tough to figure that out. And sometimes depending on where you're doing the A/B testing at, it can be hard to figure out some of the metrics behind the traffic. It can be kind of tough sometimes. But A/B testing, you're testing A and B side by side, giving some people A, some people B. Rolling is a good, one of my favorite ones. You cut over one at a time until they're all done. So you got 10 servers. You take time and you update one. So let's say we have 10 servers behind a load balancer. We will cut. We'll fail the health. We'll make the health checks fail to one server. So it pulls it out of the system. We'll update it, get everything that we need to it, put it back in. Traffic will start to get delivered there. So right now, 1 out of every 10 requests will get the new updated information and the new updated system. Then once we're good, so that we don't have any downtime, we go to the next one. We pull it out of the pool, we update it, put it back in. Move to the next one, pull it out of the pool, update it, put it back in. And you do this until you are finished. You don't have any control over the traffic here. It can take time to deploy or roll back because you're doing it one at a time. It's a linear time development there, and it's slow, but it slows the blast radius. If there are problems, it slows how fast it gets out there. This can be good or bad depending on your application architecture. Some applications, even in DevOps and stuff, we talk about failing fast. This can be a way that you're failing slow. But that can be a good or a bad thing. It really can be a good or a bad thing. If there are problems, and it takes you till server 4 to realize there are problems, you do have it on 40% of your systems before you found out, and that because of the amount of time it takes, that could present significant issues. But if it takes a long time for you to do deployments and stuff, that might be fine. But sometimes you want the blast radius to be big, depending on what you are doing. Rolling is one way to do it. This is how Kubernetes deploys. It does a rolling deployment if you are wondering about that. So here's a common question as to automated testing. Why should I write a bunch of tests if you can just manually click the buttons to test? Okay, hold on. This is a good question. Automation is much faster. You will miss buttons, and I'm interested to um that's an interesting question. If you're asking specifically about like buttons on the site, buttons on the site, a lot of it has to do with sometimes your perceived view of what's happening is not actually what's happening. For one, two, it is much faster to do, and it allows you a little more flexibility around doing that later. Excuse me. I would say also. Um, Also, again, we are fallible. There will be times when you won't test that button, and you will stop testing that button. You'll get like that. You'll get the fatigue of doing this over and over again. It'll constantly work, and then you will stop checking it, and then you'll run into a situation where where you should have checked it, but you stop checking it because it always works, and you miss things as well. Argument being that the time is lost in making automated tests for your code, where it'd been faster to just check manually when you build. So, Mr. Syntax, this is why exactly why I said I want to do I would really like to do a whole excursion on automated testing and testing as a science. Really, yes, this is a very good argument that I it's so frustrating that people don't bring up. There are trade-offs here, and understanding how to test in a way that gives you the most value and that is useful is hard to do. A lot of people just say test the thing for the sake of testing the thing. You are right. There's a time aspect to this. Sometimes it does not make sense. There's not a lot of value in providing any automated tests for the thing. There's a button that doesn't provide you a high value, that doesn't need to work. You can test it just by clicking on it 100%. These are the nuances of testing. This is why testing is hard. Knowing what to test and what not to test is very difficult, and understanding how to make tests that are meaningful. That's the hardest part. The tests should be meaningful. No point if they don't give you good information. They need to be meaningful tests. Failing quickly, but on smaller, perhaps more controlled scale. Yeah, Rusty, absolutely, it could. Depending on your setup, depending on the way your application works and is architected, absolutely, slowing the blast radius. It can also be failing quickly on a smaller subset of systems, which could help 100%. Blue-green deployment was already approached or will be. Oh no, I think that's next on the list. Next one. I was trying to set up on ECS using Terraform, a bit overwhelming. So, DevNo, that's it. We can definitely talk about that. I like that. I like that a lot. Blue-green. Let's talk about blue-green real quick. Deploy. Blue-green is deploying a completely new version alongside the current version. Okay, so we don't have to worry about anything. We have 2 running instances of our application. We got the working version that all the traffic is going over here, and we deploy another one side by side. And instead of destroying it, we just cut over all the traffic. So we then cut the traffic here and send it over to here. So we take it from blue to green or green to blue. I don't know which one's active. I don't know which color's active and which one's passive, but you just cut over all the traffic after you have a new one stood up. So this can be expensive because I put double trouble, but it's supposed to be double trouble there. It can be expensive because you have 2 things running side by side. This is more so the case if you're going to be leaving. Some people leave their blue and green up permanently. Okay, and so I'll show you this in a second. They leave it up permanently, so it can be expensive. The way the cloud works, you don't need to do that. You can spin it up, move everything over, spin the old one down, and you just keep doing that. So it may not be that expensive. Stateful deploys can be tough. State has to do with the current existence of the application. So the current way things are in a system, the current things that are happening in a system. Managing state can be tough here. So if there are things that are going on, if there are processes that are in the midst of doing things, it can be tough to manage that when you cut over the traffic. Things can break for a second, but it provides you instant rollback or roll out. So if you cut everything over, things are not working, you can completely cut back to the other one. You can completely cut the traffic back to the other side. And let's draw this out a little bit because this is pretty important. And I can show you how to set this up real fast, actually. But blue, green, blue, and green. Well, that was not good. Whoa. Blue, green. All right, so that means we have our blue server over here that's getting all the traffic. So, you know, all the traffic is going over here. What we do is we spin up that green server right here. And this is in passive mode. This is sitting there, it's ready to go. The good thing about this also is that we can test this. No traffic is going here, so we can test this. We can confirm this thing is working without sending our users over to it. We don't have access to it. We can test, make sure everything is good in a live environment. In the actual live environment, we can test it. All right, when we say things are good to go, then all we're gonna do is we're gonna send traffic here, remove that, and now we have a system over here that we can either leave up or keep. And so the next, so you know, this is, you know, we were at version 1 and then we want to go to version 2. If we want to go to version 3, we can do the same thing. We can say, all right, cool, deploy here. So update this one. And after we update it to version 3, we can test it and then we can cut off traffic from here, send it over here. Now version 3 is here. We can have this and then we take this one to version 4. Great. With the way the cloud works though, you can do it in a different way. We can spin up V2. We can spin up V2 here. We can send traffic over to this one. And then once we're good, once we're comfortable, we can cut all this, we can cut all this away. All right, we can, how do I get this to go away? Actually, I don't know how to delete this. And we can remove it like this. And we can remove it. And next time we can spin it up and do the exact same thing. So blue, green, one active at a time, and you cut over traffic. You can do this in a number of different ways. You can do this purely with load balancer pools. You can do this via DNS. There's a bunch of different ways that you can do this piece. It's a pretty interesting process, pretty simple to set up. I think the setup for blue green is pretty simple. I actually really like blue green deployments if it's in the cards financially for the company. Scalability is a big part, and also humans make errors. Very true. Manual testing, I wouldn't say it can't be done at scale. It's hard to be done at scale. But yeah, but there's also automated, well, yeah, yep, yeah. Visual testing has advanced a lot. AI can work with screenshot tool very well to confirm the button is still there. True, very, very true. Can you run 1,000 tests at once? With 1,000 fingers, I could, maybe. I think the ultimate goal for TDD is always to confirm early the code is valid. Yeah, I agree with that. Get tired of testing early in code. Complacency sets in. Complacency is a big one. It's a huge, huge one. What's a good example of blue-green testing we all experience? API versioning. I don't see. We wouldn't know. We wouldn't know. I wouldn't know who is deploying things how. API versioning is not really. It could be A/B testing. It could be blue-green deployment. Could be. You would never know. Is blue-green the most popular? Also don't know. I actually think rolling is probably the most popular, but again, I have nothing to back that claim up. I think rolling deployments are probably more popular than blue-green. Again, due to the expense, and the, like, you got to be able to provision entire systems. It's expensive. It's more expensive to have one up all the time. And if not, you need to be able to provision full systems pretty easily. If you are using, so I'll give it a try again using ECS and Terraform. So, ECS, dev note, ECS kind of does this. ECS, it kind of does this, except it does not keep around your old stuff. It tears it down immediately. So when you deploy a new version of your containers, if you update your task definition, it will first roll out replica. It'll roll out brand new infrastructure. It will transfer the traffic over to the new stuff. It'll let the other ones drain, and then it'll tear them down. So it kind of does it automatically. If if you want to run if you want to run a little more stable, like a little more traditional blue green where you have full control over it, the way that you can do this, the best way to probably do this is to have a secondary setup, a secondary setup of task definitions for ECS containers, and have like an Nginx server sitting out in front of them that you can use to cut over to different load balancer addresses or something like that. You can kind of do it manually, but yeah. G Billingsley, so not blue green. A/B testing is done a lot on UX UI. A/B testing is blue green is a little bit different because blue green is the full cut over. A/B testing is when you want to compare. A/B testing is when you want to compare your output of two different applications or two different setups there, and that's done a lot there. Is there an AWS testing tool? So, frequency hop. What would you be testing in AWS? Because most likely everything you'll be testing is the languages or frameworks that you are using. There's nothing that I know of to test software testing for just AWS. Not really, wouldn't really make any sense because you're like the software that you're creating is going to be utilizing some type of existing runtime or framework like Java or Go or C or whatever. So you would be using the testing framework that is in there. If you mean like a integration testing framework or something like that, I don't think so. So there's AWS code build. And that's probably going to have some automated tests that you can run inside of it, but I don't think there's any automated testing. Oh yeah, there is device farm, which is interesting. So you can like if you don't have like access to like different iOS devices and stuff, they have a way for you to test inside of that stuff. I say, yeah, code deploy. We're gonna talk about code deploy in a little bit, but that's a little bit different. It's basically gonna run what you run inside of your deployments. But yeah, I don't know of any like automated testing things like Sauce Labs or something, or like Selenium. Like, yeah, I don't think so. I didn't know that when people talk about A/B testing, they were having systems design conversations. So again, it's not necessarily that they're having systems design conversations. It's that for an application to like there are absolutely design considerations for your system to think about if you want to be able to run A/B testing. Like the ability to do that is the ability to run A/B tests is absolutely a systems design conversation. How in the world are we going to set up our systems so that they can deliver two applications at one time? How do we determine, how are we setting up our systems to be able to route traffic to each of the scenarios? How are we setting up observability to be able to capture that information? How are we, yeah, I mean, there's, how are we deploying this, the B version of the application so that it's separated from the A version of the application? How are we managing, how are we designing the system to manage the state of the application in terms of data? There's so many different things that go into being able to create that A/B setup for sure. You can't apply it to any system. Definite Optimist, thank you so much for the tier 1 sub. Love it. Good to have you. 6 months, that's amazing. 5-month streak, I do appreciate it. My problem is with the load balancer. Scenario upgrading Docker image with new code. The LB task A, endpoint A, test B, endpoint A. Hold on, let me look at that again. Scenario, upgrading Docker image with new code, okay? So you upgrade the Docker image with new code. Oh, okay, so ALB task A, endpoint A. Okay, so this is an ECS problem. One of two things needs to happen for this. Point A, get tag 1.0.1 test B endpoint. Get tag 1. I'm trying to think. We'll come back to that. That's an interesting one. We can draw it out a little bit. There's some interesting ways to deploy an ECS. Yeah, there's some very interesting ways to deploy on ECS because of that. We're gonna think through that a little bit. AWS service new releases could be A/B testing. They might have an A/B testing platform. They might have an A/B testing set up in AWS. Amazon personalize. What is this? Ugh. They give you a pretty sick setup. What service is this? To measure efficacy on recommendation. Oh, this is for recommendations. A/B testing on recommendations. Machine learning lens. Oh, A/B testing on CloudFront and Lambda. CloudFront might be a good one. Yeah, CloudFront makes sense. We could probably do it there, but how? I wonder how they do it here. How are they setting up the scenario? That's my only question. If request is a cache miss, oh no, that's just how the thing works. You request. All right, this doesn't really matter. We use a cookie to keep the user on a single version. Oh, so there's just random. Okay. They don't have their scenario is just, we will, I guess, pick somewhere to send the cookie and keep them there. All right, interesting. I've never done this with, I've always used the external service. There's a lot of sites that'll do it. Google has a pretty big one. There's a bunch of sites that'll help you along with that. There are services that you can just, there's services where you can kind of feed it your data, feed it your sites as an endpoint, and it'll handle that for you. But yeah, so that's the last of them. Those are just some ways that you might deploy in AWS. The reason why you should be introduced to these things is because when you are getting into AWS, when you're getting into the cloud, you're learning all the services, but you're learning how to use them to solve different types of problems. One of the biggest problems is going to be how in the world your applications are going to be architected and set up so they can be served in the way that'll save your company the most money, or the organization the most money, and provide the best performance. And knowing the different ways that you can get this data out there, the different ways that you can, you're gonna have to update your systems. You're gonna have to update your services. You're gonna have to update your application code. What are different ways you can do that to provide the most benefit? Again, you may have a scenario where Recreate works perfectly because it's not important that your stuff is up all the time. There is space for this. Like, even though it doesn't give you the fancy stuff as the other ones, there's space for this. This might be the answer for something that you want to do. Multi-zone EC2 instances is kind of like a blue-green approach. Also, could be. It could be if you actively were actively siphoning traffic to specific places. And you had, in a disaster scenario, yes, you are 100. Yes, in a disaster scenario, 100%. That's a blue-green type of thing. We'll talk about disaster recovery and stuff too, because that's a big topic. Okay, those are different deployment scenarios and deployment strategies that you might want to be familiar with. This is not, this is not all of them. And each service provides you a different level of abilities for a lot of this stuff. Oh yeah, yep, absolutely. Share. There you go. It's also in the Google Classroom. If you hit ! register, you can hop into the Horizons Google Classroom, and they're listed there as well. Okay, can we just turn servers off Saturday night and perform updates? Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Like, hey, like that's people might look at that and say, oh, that's archaic, that's old school. Like, yeah, I mean, yes. The cloud provides you a bunch of tools and features, but you may not need them. If you feel like doing that and it's not going to be an impact to your users because no one's using your systems on Saturday, it's okay to do. Now, do I recommend that? No, probably not. I probably don't recommend that mostly because you should love your Saturdays. That's usually people's days off. You should love your Saturdays. And so, there are easy ways to do that. If you are going to do that, automate it. That's all I'm saying. You can do that, but just automate it if you can. If that's what works for you all, if that's what works for you, that's okay. You don't need to. One of the biggest problems with diving into things like the cloud is feeling like you have to over-engineer a solution. You don't just because AWS and because Azure, because Google gives you all of these amazing tools and stuff, you do not have to over engineer the solution. Build to what you need. This is the reason why I'm still not a true believer in Kubernetes. I understand its benefit, but I don't understand its massive adoption. I genuinely think 75-80% of people who are using Kubernetes today should not be using Kubernetes. That is more harmful to their overall infrastructure posture than it would be to not have it. I understand why people are using it. I think it's, you know, I think it's overly utilized. I think it's over engineered for a lot of people's setups, but it works. It's okay. It works, but you don't have to worry about over engineering. You know, add in the things that you need when you need them. You know, again, doing updates, you know, setting up some automation to shut the servers off on Saturday and upgrading them is perfectly fine. Why not use Kubernetes? How do you accomplish your container orchestration? That is a phenomenal question. Yes, Kubernetes is the most beneficial of all of the container orchestrators. It has the most features. It also has the largest footprint by a substantial margin. Depending on your setup, there are other orchestration tools, even things like Docker Swarm. I know people are gonna say, oh my gosh, Docker Swarm. Docker Swarm is a real thing. It's a part of Docker that works. Amazon specifically has a tool called ECS. Again, it's non-standard because it's Amazon only, whereas Kubernetes allows you to take things everywhere else. Yes, these are trade-offs. I completely understand them. ECS is a much lighter container orchestration platform. You know, it doesn't have the same bells and whistles, but it's enough for most people. There are a number of different ways you can handle it. Kubernetes is great for container orchestration. I would also argue, as much as I love containers, I'd also argue over a lot of people's uses of containers, and needing to orchestrate containers rather than just using a container to run as a service on a normal system, how they would normally run something. Personally, but yeah, I mean, there's you can manage containers with pretty much all of the configuration management tools like Ansible and stuff. It does not give you the same level of orchestration. I 100% understand it does not, but there are ways to do it. Kubernetes is great. Rusty, I also think your question is an interesting one because you are already farther along. Like, that question is already farther along than where I would address whether or not to use Kubernetes. You say, hey, what else would you use to do your container orchestration? I'm saying, do we need to use containers at all? Yeah, I'm saying, do we need to use containers at all? And I like it. I like containers, but I think for a lot of companies, even just running standard services on the system might be okay. Again, you know, you can beat me up, you know, again, not the most effective always. Kubernetes, I do think Kubernetes is great. I don't think Kubernetes is bad. I just think that most people using Kubernetes don't need to be using Kubernetes. I think it's a big, you know, it's a big toughie there. All right. So let's go to the last set of slides, and we'll get back hands-on with some AWS services. And we're gonna talk about on-prem stuff just a little bit. They will ask you a few questions about on-premises services throughout AWS. So let me give you this. Let me remove this link. Anyone with the link? Oh, no, Rusty, 100%. People always beat me up about my thoughts on Kubernetes. I like people think I don't like Kubernetes. I love containers and I love Kubernetes. But I like that. Yeah, definitely try to formulate your own opinion and also share your opinions. If you're like the first, I was all against Kubernetes for a while, and that was because like someone has effectively I understand why, even in simpler setups, Kubernetes makes sense. There are extremely beneficial trade-offs to running Kubernetes, even in a simpler setup. It's interesting because I think if your setup's simple, y'all have the cash flow to run a managed Kubernetes setup. Then I actually am, I get it. I say go for it. Again, Kubernetes is becoming something that's pretty ubiquitous to the industry. A lot of devs are starting to understand and know Kubernetes. And again, for the most part, you can take Kubernetes wherever you want to go. It is very expensive to run a Kubernetes cluster, or like either way you look at it. Even if you're going to set it up yourself, the people who are maintaining this, you're going to have to pay them a lot. That talent's going to be a lot to be able to maintain a Kubernetes cluster. And to run manage Kubernetes clusters, which is how I would run it, is very, very expensive. Cost is a trade-off. Cost is a big trade-off that I think a lot of times when people are recommending it, they don't have to take into account costs. And they're not the people worrying about the bills. But yeah, I mean, I think Kubernetes is great, and I think I understand why it's going to be. Kubernetes is the future of running applications. Kubernetes is a platform I think is the future of running applications. I think it's going to become the main way that applications are run. I genuinely believe that it's the operating system of the future, kind of. People are going to know how to use it all across the board. But yeah, I mean, it's all how you feel. Take some of the fun out of it. I think containers are actually pretty fun. Maybe the management of them takes some of the fun out, but like, I don't know. Containers are cool. I like them. Oh, Occam Games, thank you so much for the Twitch Prime sub. 2 months. I appreciate you. Good to see you as well. In the context of this class, Amazon's container orchestration is more cost effective. Yeah, 100%. And well, ECS is much more cost effective, because ECS, you are simply paying for all you're paying for is the underlying EC2 instances. So in that case, you're just paying for the instances that ECS is controlling, and that the agent is running on. That's what you're paying for. I guess AKS is the same. The Kubernetes engine is the same, except the control plane takes a pretty large server to run, and so it automatically makes it pretty expensive. Why Docker is merging with AWS then? It's possible today to use Docker Compose up and deploy directly to ECS, correct? Yeah, and so that's really good. I don't know why they're merging with AWS. Utilizing Docker Compose to deploy directly to ECS is helpful. Docker Compose on its own, though, is not really a container. So it's a container orchestration tool to an extent, but it does not provide a lot of the orchestration pieces that people are looking for. It doesn't. Docker Compose will try to, because it'll try to restart containers whether or not they die, but it won't do any of the management of mass creation and handling of moving things between clusters and things like that. ECS will. Yeah, I mean, that's super helpful. But again, it's Amazon specific, and I get why you might not want to use something like that and be kind of locked into a vendor for your container orchestration needs. And that's one of the biggest reasons. That's the biggest benefit to me of Kubernetes, is that you're going to be able to use for the most part, you're going to be able to use your manifest and your YAML wherever you go. And that's pretty helpful. But I also didn't know Docker was merging with AWS. Didn't know that. I find that to be very interesting. Very, very interesting. I'm gonna look that up right after this to find out what information I can. All right, so let's talk about some different on-prem options, and then we'll hop into RDS and we'll be done for the day. Let's get through this. So on-prem RDS and plus RDS, more computer stuff. I think on-prem is more of the boring pieces of AWS, because most people won't ever touch this stuff. But it is important to know about. You will be asked questions about this on all of the associate level exams. You'll probably be asked something about one of these. We've already talked a little bit about some of them, so we'll run through it. So what's on-prem? Well, you might hear this often. You might be like, what does that mean? On-prem is on premises. So on the premises. On-premises software is installed and runs on computers on the premises of a person or organization using the software, rather than at a remote facility such as a server cloud or server farm. Okay, so these are servers that organizations own themselves and that they are running, maybe out of their closet, maybe out of their own data center, wherever. But it's not a remote thing that someone else is running. It is these are systems that run on the premises of the person using them. All right, so this would be if right now I was serving to you off of, maybe I had a bunch of rack servers right here in my closet. These will be my on-premises servers, and one of the things about them is that with those, I've got to manage them. I have to do all the updates. I have to rack them, make sure the networks are run to them, configure them, network them, all the other stuff. I got to do it all. And that's, it's a thing. It's a thing. Cloud is not, everything's not on the cloud. On-prem is still a thing. Let me see. Okay, let me go back to this because there's no slide for this. Here, so some of the benefits there are benefits to running things on-prem. What are the benefits of running things on premises? Some of the benefits are: 1, complete control and access to systems and the data. All right, right now you cannot, maybe you could if you're a high paying customer, but you cannot go to Amazon's facilities and go in and touch their servers and have access to those things and go plug in a cable to get data out of those things. You can't do that. You don't have direct access to any of those things. So that's one huge benefit to having on-prem systems. A lot of companies, more companies than you know, maybe they do run stuff in the cloud, but they probably have all kinds of on-premises systems. Another reason why on-prem might make sense is that it can be cheaper. It can be cheaper than the cloud. The cloud, although it's really great, it may not make sense if you are, this really comes into scale. This really comes into scale. On-prem provides a pretty high upfront cost, and you lose the ability to have the type of agility that you would have in the cloud, being able to get more resources at will if you are purely on-prem. But that upfront cost may average out over the years depending on the scale of your application. Because most people only take into account the cost of the servers, but you got to take into account the cost of the data pipe going into your systems. You got to take into account the electricity that's being used. And so for larger organizations, staying on-prem can make sense. Financially can make sense. It is not always going to be cheaper to do things in the cloud at all. Compliance is a perfect one. Staying compliant might be, your only option might be to stay to keep things on an on-prem space. Maybe it's only part of your system, but this stuff is it's sitting there, and you got to make it happen. It's useful having something on-prem sometimes. So that's all it is. There, co-location with Amazon. Yeah, I mean, I don't think Amazon offers co-location. They offer the opposite of co-location, which we're about to learn about in a second. But yeah. All right. Six Stream, I appreciate that, Apank. So hybrid cloud. Hybrid cloud refers to a mixed computing, storage, and service environment made up of both on-premises infrastructure, so stuff that I have, and private cloud providers, cloud services, and public cloud such as Amazon Web Services or Microsoft Azure, with orchestration among the various platforms. So hybrid cloud approach. A lot of companies take this approach. They have systems already on premises, and when they do their move to the cloud, they still want to keep some things in-house. They still want to manage some things locally, have access to certain pieces of data, certain systems, but those things can also interface with things that are done in the cloud. Yes, this GIF is very weird, but it is a hybrid. It's a it's a catfish. It's a coyote pike. There we go. Tells us right up top. So there we go. But hybrid cloud, pretty important. This is something that's much more common. You will see, you'll run into a lot of these, and sometimes you've got to make the systems that are in the cloud, again, interface with the systems that you have that are on premises. And that can be, there's a lot of tools that allow you to do that. And we're going to talk about some of that stuff. We're about to move on from it 100%. So some stuff in the cloud, some stuff on-prem, hybrid cloud. You might have a local cloud as well, private cloud as well, but yeah. All right, so what does AWS offer for some of these some of these things for the creation of hybrid systems and even completely on-prem. What do we have? Outposts, AWS Outposts. These are really cool, okay? This is AWS that you can fully run on your on premises at your own space. And you can get the functionality of AWS. Remember, one of the first things that we said was that all AWS is a layer of software, a layer of APIs on top of some infrastructure. So Amazon will provide you infrastructure with their services available that they will fully manage, that you can put in your data center. Okay, you can take this stuff and put it in your data center, and again, it's fully managed AWS infrastructure. Okay, and it has the ability for you to use these AWS services that run on the systems that they've given you. Okay, it's pretty interesting. It's very, very interesting. It's weird. It's definitely weird. It's pretty odd, but it's cool. You can do it if you want. What's up, Freeman? How are you doing? Yeah, they give you a whole cabinet. They'll give you a whole cabinet of servers. It's pretty nuts. But you know, sometimes that can be pretty useful. It can be pretty useful, but I mean, you know, it could be. Again, there are worlds where you must keep this stuff on prem, where you must keep it in a certain place. You must run it from a certain place, and to be able to have the type of orchestration that you have currently that Amazon gives you, it would take a lot of engineering for someone to be able to replicate some of that, to be able to replicate even a little bit of that. And so being able to grab an engineer that knows AWS to manage your on-prem stuff is a big deal. Save you a bunch of time. You've got some redundancy there. And again, it's also fully managed. So they'll, you know, make sure that they're, you know, it's hardware issues and stuff. They'll take care of that stuff for you. Seen the live coders page, so decided to drop by, see what you're streaming. I appreciate it, Freeman. We are in part 4 of 8 of a series called Horizons, where we're diving into cloud computing with AWS. This is the first of 3 8-week boot camps. This is the apprentice level, so we're just getting introduced to the services inside of Amazon. Then we'll dive further in the journeyman level and master level. So that's what we do here. We also do coding stuff on Tuesdays and Thursdays, so software engineering journeys, and then we do a software delivery, DevOps and SRE stream on Mondays and Wednesdays. Oh yes, Savvy, this is not cheap at all. It's very expensive. That's why you have to simply contact sales. But for a lot of the enterprises that use this stuff, that is what you would do. Thank you so much for the follow, Freeman. I appreciate it. All right. So wait, this is the wrong one. Where are we at? On-prem. So AWS Outpost, it's relatively new. And again, just understand that this is the on-prem offering where it's fully managed, and they will give you actual infrastructure that has access to their APIs and things that you can use to manage that infrastructure that you have on your premises. Remember, how can they do this? They can do this because that's all the AWS cloud really is. It's their systems with that layer of software over top of it running in their own data centers. So instead, why can't they just offer you the same thing, but you run the servers in your data center? That's the difference. It's not that crazy. All right, and let's go to the next one. We talked about these already during the S3 part, but this is pretty important. Snowball. How do you for migrations and things, or if you are running a hybrid cloud, what if, we're still running certain workloads and certain systems on-prem, but we want to manage a bunch of data and run workloads in the cloud as well. We have tons of data that we need to move so that we can start the transition into the cloud or to move a certain piece of the application to the cloud. How do you get it there? We talked about Snowball, that actual physical device that you can use that Amazon will ship you, that you can plug it into to get petabyte levels of data and move it to the cloud. Why would you need a physical device for this? Again, depending on your transfer speeds, it's difficult to move that much data, and it can be expensive. It can be very expensive to data into AWS, again, will be free, but it might be expensive on your network provider side. And it could be very time consuming, very, very, very time consuming, and possibly quite unreliable. And so they'll send you a physical hardware device, a very rugged device that you can put your data onto, like a big thumb drive, and then ship it back to them, and they will load it into the cloud for you, which will be a much faster, more secure process. We learned about Snowball Edge, which is the same thing, but it actually has some compute features built in. So it's basically got a computer built in, a server built into it, and you can use this to take this to remote locations and save data, as well as do some compute at edge. You can do some computing where don't have access to Amazon Web Services. So at remote locations for scientists and stuff, they use it on planes, all kinds of stuff. If you want to use that. More John, yes, hit exclamation point YouTube. These all go into the YouTube channel. There are playlists for each of the courses if you want to hop on there. Wake up at 6 a.m. every day to watch your stream. One, that is wild. Two, thank you. That's amazing. That's a huge testament. I appreciate that. I hope you are getting something out of it for sure. That's dedication right there. I'm proud of you. I wake up early as well, but I couldn't watch a stream that early in the morning, if I'm gonna be honest with you. That's pretty nuts. But nope, well, good to have you here for sure. All right. So Snowball Edge allows you to do that stuff. And then Snowmobile is an actual 18-wheeler that they will drive out to your location. You plug it in to your systems via fiber. This is for lots and lots and lots of data that you need to keep secure. And then they transport it to AWS within, I think they give you an armed guard and everything. But yeah, up to 100 petabytes of data. It's a 40-foot long ruggedized shipping container pulled by a semi. That's what you can do. Oh yes. I always forget about that second billing cycle. You can watch all the video on demand for 14 days because we are not partners. Once we get partnered, we can get both transcoding and 60 days of playback when we get there. But we'll see. We'll see when they decide that we are worthy. But we'll get there. We'll get there one day. All right. Your office hours are 6 for me. Yeah, it is super early. So is tomorrow office hours? I thought tomorrow was the build series. This is the 4th week. I gotta look. I don't know. If it's the build series, I don't know what we're gonna do. I have like 9 different options that I started to make, that we started to build stuff for. So build series, anyone who doesn't know, on Saturdays, we either do office hours, or you can just come get whatever questions you want answered, and we just talk about whatever. And then the other Saturday the next Saturday is supposed to be build series, where we'll pick a random thing to go through and build. Like it can be all kinds of stuff. Some of the things that I have that we can do, we can build our own mail server, which you shouldn't run your own, but learning how to build one might be pretty cool. We talked about doing some networking stuff. We might do some networking stuff. I have a couple that are going to dive deeper into learning like Nginx and hosting websites and some of the options you have there. We got stuff for serverless applications and building serverless applications, as well as containerization. It's stuff for everything, but it's a guided course. So I have Notion documents that have all the commands and things that you need, and we'll run through and we'll get something built in 2 hours, 2 to 2.5 hours, like something usable. Maybe you don't need to use this thing at all, but it'll allow us to just get hands-on with random technologies and touch all kinds of different things and just have a little bit of fun. So that's what we're doing. So I'll pick something for tomorrow before we're done here, and I'll let you know what it is. And you come through if you want to come through. No big deal. But I'll always share the I'm going to share whatever we do, I'll share the Notion in all the classrooms in case anyone decides they want to walk through it later, just so you have it. But it'll probably be something super, I don't know. We'll figure out what to do tomorrow. So another on-prem service. So Snowmobile, Snowball Edge, Snowball Edge, and Snowmobile. Now they have, what did y'all say the other one was called? The little one that y'all told me about? Popsicle or Icicle or, let's see. AWS, Snow Cone. Yeah, they have a smaller one now. They have a much smaller one, which is cool. We are going to get one of these. We are going to get one of these. So it's a much smaller one that I think also has compute, doesn't it? That allows you to do some edge computing. I'm pretty interested in this. I'm really, really interested in this. And I want to do some stuff with it. Yeah, it allows you to do some edge computing. I really like this. We're going to find something to do with that. We can do an Elastic Beanstalk app. Yeah, we could. Oh, 100%. That's a really good idea. I think we're going to do a Beanstalk app here, but I think we could do a Elastic Beanstalk app tomorrow too. I don't have anything put together for that, but I could absolutely put something together for that. Maybe. I do like Elastic Beanstalk. We'll see. We'll see here. All right. So, the next thing was storage gateway. So storage gateway, this is really cool. This is for your hybrid cloud stuff. I really like storage gateway. It's a service that allows you to that gives your on-premise system. So imagine you have a on-premise data center in the basement of your building, and it gives you access to storage in the cloud. So one of the biggest things people love the cloud for is storage. You know, Google gives you all this space. Everyone's trying to give you all this cloud storage space. You're trying to get your Apple whatever backup or whatever it's called, all that other stuff. You can get all the access to AWS's storage through this. So it's a service that can be physical or virtual. You can actually get a physical interface for this or virtual, and it allows you to be able to transmit data into AWS. But it also allows you to also cache files locally. So let's say, moving big files over a network can be problematic. Well, not problematic, but it'll take longer if you're actually transmitting it over the internet. But if you have them locally, you can transmit them at wild speeds, like wild speeds on an internal network. You can do the same thing over data, but if you're doing it externally, you are blocked by a lot of things. But internally, things can move crazy fast. So what it'll do, because it can take so long to transfer big files over the network or files at all, it'll cache them locally, so that you can access your systems can access files that are accessed often very, very quickly. But it's cool. It just allows you to have a gateway into directly into the storage of AWS. So rather than us accessing stuff via S3 commands and stuff, which is fast on our end and stuff, you can have more direct access to the systems that are in AWS. It's pretty expensive, but you can do it for enterprise customers there. I threw these things in here. I not threw them in here, but I tossed these in here because these two things will also help you manage. You can use these to manage on-prem things as well as stuff in Amazon. And so Code Deploy, and really Code Star, but Code Deploy is a development service that automates application deployments to Amazon EC2 on premises instances. So you can use this automation tool that Amazon has called Code Deploy to deploy things to your on-premises instances, which is a big deal. Serverless Lambda functions or Amazon's ECS. So Amazon has something called Code Star. It's a suite of tools that we call Code Star. Star is an asterisk. A star is a wild card for everything. And so they have Code Build, Code Deploy. I don't remember what the registry is called. So they have a repository for your code, like a GitHub. You can send your code directly to Amazon to be held. It's got automation. It's got some CI tools that can build your code and do the testing and coding and deploy it automatically for you. This is the Code Star pipeline. Okay, we'll look at some of those tools. We'll look at some of those tools in a second. But they will Code Deploy at least allows you to deploy onto on-prem instances as well as stuff in Amazon Web Services. That's cool. And OpsWorks. That the reason why this GIF is here for OpsWorks is because OpsWorks is basically it's a configuration management service that provides managed instances of Chef and Puppet. So Chef, a lot of people use Chef for this. He's a chef. Look at him. He's cooking right there. He's a chef. We're going to learn about Chef a little bit later on. If you're really interested in learning a configuration management tool, we're also going to learn some Ansible in the pipelines course in a couple weeks. But these tools allow you to do the automatic configuration and continue to maintain the configuration of servers in your environment. And you can use these against your on-prem servers as well. And that's why we are talking about OpsWorks. There's a surprising amount of OpsWorks questions for like SysOps administrator and stuff. It's always super interesting, but yeah, Chef and Puppet, but no Ansible. I think that has to do with, I think it has to do with the way that they are managed, probably, and probably also somehow some type of contractual issues with with who's those people called, with Red Hat, maybe, I don't know. But yeah, Chef and Puppet, but no Ansible. At as far as I know, maybe they'll add support. Maybe support's already added, but I'm pretty sure it's just for Chef and Puppet. That's how it's been in the past. What about Pivotal Cloud Foundry? Yes. So, anything to do with what you're going over? So Pivotal Cloud Foundry, is a platform. It's an entire platform. So you can call. It's very interesting. You can call AWS a platform. Pivotal Cloud Foundry is a platform as a service. It makes it so that you can very easily deploy your applications to this whole thing. It is related. It's kind of related to the pipelines that you can build in this, but not really. Pivotal's pretty cool. Y'all should check out, like, if you're looking for cool jobs to where you'll learn, Pivotal only does, you all day, all they do is pair program. You basically get paired up with someone and y'all sit at one computer and y'all code. I've been to their lab, I've been to their offices. It's pretty interesting. It seems pretty cool. It seems like a good way to learn. Pair programming is such a good way to learn. Like, it forces you some days, you probably like, man, I want to be lazy. So you can't, that sucks, because you can't, like, it's hard to like take time off, I guess. Like I don't know, you're always constantly having to work through something because you got somebody else there with you. But I assume you learn a ton there. I tried a team switch there. What like so you used to work there? Oh, did I not put anything here about Direct Connect? Yeah, let's talk about Direct Connect real quick because we have time. Yeah, we have time. So there's also AWS Direct Connect. And so Direct Connect is kind of like storage gateway, which allows you to have direct network access into AWS. Yeah, it just allows you to have a pipe, to have a physical direct pipe to AWS services. And I think Direct Connect is very expensive as well. Like, I think absurdly expensive for this, because sometimes they have to run like serious stuff to make this happen. But yeah, 100%. Oh no, work that. Okay, interesting. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what Pivotal is like to work at as a company. The building seems cool. They're pretty popular in the government space. Yeah, they're pretty popular in the government space. They got their own kind of container orchestration tools and stuff. So they use, I think the container orchestration tool is what? It's Diego or something like that. I think for Pivotal, it's they're using Diego, and so it's like a Kubernetes-like thing to kind of be able to easily deploy your apps, like very specific to how it works. But it's a whole platform, and a lot of government organizations use it. Okay. Whoops. I clicked on all the wrong things. All right, so now the last service we're gonna get to, and we're gonna spend a little time here, is on database services. And we're gonna talk specifically about RDS, and we're gonna set up an RDS instance and get connected to it in a second. But first, we need to know what a database is. What in the world is a database? A database is a systemic collection of data, okay? Notice we said systemic collection of data, systemic. All right, so just while, I guess it could still be considered, but your thumb drive and you dumped a bunch of stuff on it is not considered a database because it doesn't have a system for management of that data. Databases support storage and manipulation of data. Databases make data management easy. So you'll commonly see databases referred to as DBMSs, so database management systems. You'll commonly see it as RDBMS, relational database management systems, and now there's something called NoSQL as well. We're going to talk about that, and we're Hugo. We're literally the next slide where we'll talk about these things. We're not going to talk about the NoSQL version of things in AWS tonight. We're going to specifically highlight the relational stuff tonight, and then we will move on to the NoSQL stuff. I think it might be next week. I don't know. But we'll touch on that service in at a later time. But there are more than two types of databases, but there are two main types of databases that people are usually working with, and this is important stuff. This is understanding the differences between these, and then starting to, there are different classifications of services inside of AWS. So understanding what these do will help you mentally separate the services that that serve these things. So types of databases: relational or SQL languages, or SQL databases. This is a database management system that defines database relationships in forms of tables, also known as relations. That may not help you out a lot at all, but think about a table which has, rows and columns, kind of like an Excel sheet. An Excel sheet is, is a type of database, to be honest. But what relational databases do is the way that they structure these rows and columns, they rely on a system of relationships. So you can take two pieces of data and link them together and form a relationship between them. And this, because they have a relationship, you can start to traverse the database and grab different pieces that are linked to other different pieces to get a full scope of the information that you need. It uses SQL to query the data. So query is just to look for and to ask for different things. SQL stands for structured query language. And so it is a thing that you have to learn. It's a language for requesting information. It's not incredibly tough to learn, but it's pretty important to learn. It's pretty valuable for you to pick up SQL. You can pick up the basics of SQL in just a couple hours. To be honest, just to get the basics down. It'll take you a little while to get good at putting together complex queries, because they can get pretty complex. But yeah, you use SQL to use SQL to be able to query the data. That's the language that you use. And it can be difficult to scale these databases. All right. We talked about being able to meet the demand of the requests that are coming in, and it can be very difficult to scale the databases. And we're going to talk about why that is a little bit farther. Someone just, Rooks, thank you so much for the follow. Also, Nick and T, thank you for the follow. Spit or Spike, man, I messed that one up. I'm sorry about that. Welcome to the channel. I got to figure out how to raise your names are as far as possible from me, and they're little. Nether Diamond, welcome to the channel as well. And yeah, and Lil Plu, welcome as well. Good to have you. Select star from Mastermind, where organization equals horizon. All of you all have been selected 100%. Yeah, I mean, that's what Aya just put in the chat is what a query would look like in SQL. It uses plain English words for the most part, and it would look exactly like that if our data was structured accordingly. It's also important to note that SQL, these relational databases it's structured. You have to define what the data looks like. The data has a specific structure that it cannot deviate from. It's got to be in a format which you create. It's got to be in a schema. It's got to have a specific setup for you to do these things, and it can be tough, but it can also be quite difficult to scale. These are also something called, these databases are ACID compliant. We'll talk about that as well. Does anyone even use MySQL anymore? Yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess. Or variations. They might use MariaDB or Aurora, but yeah, 100%. 10-year-old video about non-relational and relational databases. Dope. Yeah, definitely. I'm gonna watch that in a little bit. That's funny. That's not what I expected when I first got there. I'm very excited to watch that. I'm leaving that up. Is SQL command knowledge needed for DevOps? Yes. Yes. It is something that you should be familiar with for sure. If you were going to be doing some DevOps, you may not use it because you may not be using relational databases, but yes, you should. If you're getting into DevOps, SQL is something that you should dive into for sure. And again, like I said, I think if you know it at the pretty basic level, I think it's good to know. I think it's also worth understanding the difficulties of managing a relational database. There are some difficulties managing relational databases. We'll talk about some of that very shortly when we're actually talking about RDS. We'll talk about that. You just spun up a MySQL. Dope. Yeah, we're probably gonna do that tonight. I had a question in an interview about coding tests, but thought it was pointless. Yeah, it's pretty hit or miss. I also dislike SQL queries. To be honest with you, I don't really like it. If like nowadays, if I'm creating an application, you know, if you must create relational database, user relational database, then I will, but like I'll avoid it if at all possible. I will avoid using a relational database. All right, so then we have something called NoSQL. NoSQL does not mean no SQL. It means not only SQL. It means that you can get data by more than just using the structured query language. You can query in different ways. Those different ways might be using web requests to web requests to get that stuff back. There's different ways to gather the information that you want rather than using SQL. It's unstructured, and it's definitely in quotes, or it has a dynamic schema. So there's a lot more play in what you can do here, and what your data can look like. It doesn't have the same rules for structure. It is pretty scalable in comparison, especially horizontally. It's horizontally scalable. So remember, horizontally is adding more resources underneath rather than making the resource that you have more powerful. And it's not good though for complex queries. So relational databases are still better for really, really complex queries and trying to, put together information from a lot of different data points. NoSQL is not quite the best for that. It'll work, but like not really good if that's your use case. I love Postgres. I think that's a question. That's a question of preference. Yeah. So I think it's a question of preference too. I hear that a lot. I hear that a whole lot, that people love Postgres. I haven't dealt with Postgres too much, and so I don't really understand why yet, but it's definitely something I'm gonna be diving deeper into. AWS does not give dummy data when you spin up a database, right? Correct. They do not give you dummy data. Is Postgres the best version of SQL? It depends on your use case. I mean, it's not if you need Microsoft SQL, it's definitely not. Like if your application needs Microsoft SQL, it's not the best. I mean, the best version is definitely a question of preference. All right, so those are the two different major types of databases: relational and NoSQL. So Amazon's solution to this, the service that they offer that allows you to work with relational databases. Their relational database solutioning and service is called RDS, which stands for Relational Database Service. It is a fully managed, scalable relational database service. Fully managed, when we say fully managed, we mean that all the underlying systems, the software, that is handled for you. You don't have to take care of any of that. You don't have to worry about the health of those things. All you have to worry about for the most part at this point is you're renting a server that they're handling for you, and you really care about your data. All you gotta really care about is the data itself, and they'll for the most part, they will handle the underlying maintenance of everything for you, which is nice. It supports the following relational databases, and this list is pretty important, okay? It's very important here. You will get asked about this on some of the exams, but what does it support? So Aurora is, you might not have ever heard of Aurora, and that's because it's Amazon specific. It is a replacement for both, I think it's a replacement for both. It has compatibility for both MySQL databases and for Postgres. It is something that Amazon created specifically, and it runs very efficiently on their systems, and it actually costs you less to run an Aurora database than any of the other ones. And so it's pretty good. It's a replacement for both of them. You got to set that up during the setup time, and we'll do that in a second. They have MySQL, which is super popular open source SQL database. MariaDB, which is another MySQL drop-in replacement of MySQL. They have Postgres. They have Oracle Server and SQL Server. I know those are both gross, but and SQL Server is Microsoft SQL Server. Okay, so pretty cool. These are the options that they have, enough to suit just about everyone. So before we go to the next slide, if you've never had to manage a database, a relational database system, it can be, so one, your data is very, very finicky, and it's very, very important. Like, data is the thing that runs most applications, most systems. it's very, very important. And the way the databases work, they run these transactions. So if when you go to a website, when you go to a website and you are clicking, when you are signing into a website, it is usually reaching into some type of database, and it's reading the information that exists there, and it's saying, hey, let me find out your username, and your username is going to be linked to some other different things, your account number, all this other stuff, and that data is going to be, a SQL query is going to be put together most likely, and the data is going to be given back, and so that you can see the page. But the data, like I said, is structured in a very specific way. There's also things that are happening. New people are signing up and stuff like that. So there's also changes to the database being made. So there are transactions that are happening where entries are being put in or entries are being changed. But ensuring that the data has some integrity, the way that these databases work, there's something called ACID compliance. And they do these things where they lock spaces and they update spaces so that no one else can make updates and stuff. And so the way that databases work is it's pretty interesting. It's a little bit complex, but it's very, very important in the way that they work to make sure integrity is maintained. Because of the way that they operate, and because data is the thing that's driving most of these systems and services, databases are notoriously difficult to manage at scale. They're almost always the bottleneck for an application. They're almost always the bottleneck. Why? Because if I have a system that's serving you a website, I can just open up all this. If it's just a static website, I can just open up all these servers and they can all serve this thing individually. But databases are going to be something that's also generally going to manage the state of the application. It's going to determine, what's going on in the application at a different time. And it's much more difficult to have multiple of them. Why? Because if data is being written to a database, written to one database, you're writing something to a database, and let's say you have 2 or 3 databases running, how does this data get over to the other databases? You can only write to one place at a time. How does the information, so if you write to this server and then you make another request, what if that request goes to the other database? And that data won't be there, and it can be really finicky, so it can be tough to do that, okay? It can be really tough to manage that. Failover, everything is hard to do when managing these relational databases. I promise you it is, and performance is generally a problem. What's nice about RDS is it provides you a lot of options for managing exactly those things. So scalability, reliability, all that stuff is built into this managed service, and it makes it pretty easy. Setting up replicated SQL instances, MySQL instances, is a hassle. It is a hassle. Oh my gosh, it's a hassle. But RDS gives you a bunch of functionality to be able to very easily do horizontal scaling. It allows you to scale horizontally, okay? Now, let's be clear here. RDS is an expensive service. It is a very expensive service, but that cost is warranted, to be honest, for what they give you. But read replicas. This is a very important AWS concept. Read replicas. Inside of the relational database service, it'll give you something called read replicas. This is used when you want to scale out your databases. So databases do have these managed databases do have a size, but scaling out your database, providing more resources, is something you can do. And this is done with read replicas. What are read replicas? They are copies of your databases to request data from. So they are replicas of your main database, of the database that you can write to. So at any given time, you can only write to one database, or you should be only writing to one database, and you can create replicas of that database that people can read from. This means that you write data to one place, but you can read the data from a bunch of different places, so it's easier to serve the information, serve the requests that are coming in. All right, so you can only write to one, but then that gets replicated to the other ones, and you can read from those. This is not used for failover. This is not database redundancy. It's not. Why is it not database redundancy? Because it is not allowing, only one of these servers can be written to. If the right server goes down, if the right RDS instance ends up having a problem, you can no longer write to your database anymore. You may be able to still read from the replicas, but you can no longer write any data. So it's not this is not add any redundancy. This is not like load balancer pools at all. It's not like load balancing at all. You can load balance between the read replicas, but by default, these read replicas aren't like that. It's not used for failover or disaster recovery. You can have read replicas of other read replicas. So I can make replicas of replicas rather than making it from the main server or the main RDS instance, but there may be some latency there. Why might there be some latency? Because when you write to an RDS instance, it's got to copy that data over to the read replicas before you can get it. All right, and it does it pretty fast. It's pretty impressive, actually. It does it very fast. But if you have replicas of the replicas, then once it gets to the replica, it's got to copy it again to another replica. So it's going to add some latency. It's going to add some time that it takes when accessing data or when you can get data. Read replicas themselves, it's possible to add latency, but it's actually pretty impressive how read replicas work. Again, they're not used for disaster recovery or for failover. There is something called multi-AZ that's used for disaster recovery. So you can have a multi-AZ RDS instance. What that means is, what does AZ mean? Take it back to the day 1 or 2, where we learned about availability zones. Okay, so you can have a replica. I don't even want to call it a replica, but you can have an instance that mirrors your main instance in another availability zone, which does provide you some failover and disaster recovery. If something should happen, you can fail over to the one in the other availability zone to be used. So that's what you would use for disaster recovery, is a multi-AZ RDS instance, multiple availability zones. But read replicas are not for that. Read replicas simply give you more, allow you to scale the access of data horizontally. So give you more places to read your data from, but you still only have one place to write it to. Basically for failover redundancy, in this case, the master DB goes down. Correct. So if the master database goes down, it can fail over to another availability zone and the new thing can take over, but that costs you more money. But yeah, it's a good way to kind of handle that automatically. These are great features. I'm telling you, these are amazing features. If you ever have to manage anyone's systems at scale, these are phenomenal. These are, RDS is expensive, but these are super duper helpful for sure. Does horizontal scaling in this situation mean copying a database for each server you have? Yeah, so it does. It'll be a full copy. It'll be full copies of the database that exists, and they'll keep them in sync. It'll just constantly keep them in sync. And we can share the cluster to another organization account. I think so as well. Yeah, you should be able to, because it just gives you an endpoint. It's also worth noting that for these read replicas, basically this RDS instance, all it does is it spins up this thing for you that you don't have to worry about. You don't even have access to log into the system like via like SSH or anything, but it just gives you a DNS endpoint. Each of these read replicas will have a different DNS endpoint, so you can connect different servers to different read replicas and stuff, and you can also load balance between them if you need to, but you can only do that amongst your read replicas. But it's pretty cool. It makes it pretty cool for you to scale. It makes it pretty easy. Cool, and now we're gonna hop in. There are many more features of RDS, but these are all the things that you need to know for it right now. Really, you should understand what a read replica is, and understand that for a disaster and failover, you need to set up multi-AZ setup. Now we're gonna log into it. We'll mess around with some of this stuff. There are other caveats to some of these things. Read replicas can be multi-AZ as well, like they can be in any availability zone. Read replicas can also be across region. I'm pretty sure you can have read replicas in any region, which is pretty interesting. But yeah, hashtag Friday. What's up, man? Good to have you. To the moon, man. Welcome. Thank you so much for gifting again. That's love. That's love right there. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Yeah, serverless Aurora does look neat. It's pretty interesting. We'll log in and look at that. So let's log into that right now. We're not in the console. Should be in the console. Let's log in and see. All right, so RDS, Relational Database Service. Again, pretty expensive. There is a free tier for this as well. but it can get, watch out for this one. It can get very, very expensive. It also makes it very easy for you to create clusters. And it used to not do this. It creates clusters by default now. When you create a single instance, it actually creates a cluster for you right up front for you to start to handle things in. But yeah, I mean, it can get super expensive, super fast. So just make sure you're tearing these things down. And they have standard create and easy create. Like I said, I actually haven't done this from I haven't seen this interface and I haven't done this from here in a while. So let's kind of see what we have. Recommended. Let's do a standard create and see if we can figure this out. For failover, AWS rerouted traffic without you having to change endpoints. Exactly. That's a really good point. So when we talk about failover, we're talking about if there was a catastrophic problem with your current database. If something caused that database to go down, failover would allow for the automatic transfer of traffic to a new location, which is really, really nice. It's really, really helpful for you. So you might see a little bit of downtime, like maybe a couple minutes, possibly, maybe not, depending on how your setup is, and you don't even have to intervene for failover. Yeah, I like the way this looks. This looks pretty good to me, and I can check this out. So the first one they give you is Amazon Aurora. Like I said, Amazon Aurora has the ability, it's something they built in-house, which gives you optimized functionality for MySQL and Postgres. And you know, it works well, but you can choose one of these options. We'll leave it on Amazon Aurora right now. Remember, we said Amazon Aurora has compatibility with both MySQL and Postgres. I'm gonna leave it on MySQL only because I know MySQL. I've managed MySQL a lot more, and I know more MySQL commands. I don't really know that much Postgres stuff, so I'm not gonna mess with that right now. And then capacity type. Hold on. Oh yeah, no, I know this. Yeah. So provision capacity type. So remember we talked about the capacity of EC2 instances. So we talked about those C5 large or T2 medium or whatever that give you the size and the capacity and kind of what it's good for. Provision capacity allows you to do exactly that. You basically get a specific sized system. Serverless, on the other hand, allows you to specify a lower and upper limit, and it'll scale in between that capacity. So you worry less about what it is. I don't like to use the word serverless here, but I understand why they do it. And again, they say it's good for intermittent or unpredictable workloads. It could save you money, but it also could be more expensive. I'm gonna do provisioned just because I'm gonna do provisioned. Actually, let's do this. We would switch to serverless, but there are some limitations for our current PG version. That's fair. Let's do serverless. It's fine. For what we're gonna do, it's not really gonna make a difference. Let's try it out. Let's try it out. This should be fine. Version, I'll leave it on MySQL 5. I don't care. Doesn't really matter to me. So we'll do this. And then you get some settings you gotta set up. So DB settings, you give it a name. So database cluster identifier. I'm gonna call this Horizons example, like we've been doing for stuff. Then you set up some credentials. These credentials are pretty important because this is what you are going to use to log in. Oh, so provision is more static in terms of space. Yes. So the same way you'll get a specific amount of compute capacity and RAM and all that on an EC2 instance, that is what a provisioned capacity will do. You'll select how large you want, how much capacity you want of different things, and that is what you'll get. You can scale it up and stuff. You can shut it down and scale it up and all kinds of stuff like that. But you can, you got to set how much you want. You got to know exactly how much you want when you're doing that. Also, another thing, we didn't talk about it now, but I don't want to forget it. There's gonna be space to get into it in a second, but I don't want to forget about it. Another amazing thing about AWS and about RDS is specifically the backup system. So you get automatic backups, which are really cool. You can also at any given time take manual point in time snapshots of the database, which is really nice. And then you can use that database to deploy new databases. You can easily use that snapshot. It's very similar to snapshotting in EBS for EC2, but you can take it, you can snapshot it at any given time. It's a backup, and you can use that to deploy a brand new instance, which is really nice. It also offers encryption. You can encrypt your data at rest, which is really nice as well. Encryption is pretty important. And the one thing though is that you cannot enable encryption on an already provisioned database, you must do it at the start. So if you have one, if you have it, and this might be a question on the exams, if you already have an existing database and you want to encrypt it, what do you have to do? You have to take a snapshot of it and then create a new database using that snapshot and select encryption at that time. And these are the types of things that you got to learn over time with AWS, like weird stuff like that. Those snapshots have saved me multiple times, 100%. These snapshots are really nice. It makes it so easy to roll back a database. Rolling back a database can be incredibly problematic because of the way the data works. It can be so hard to do correctly. These snapshots make it super duper easy to be able to do that. Yep, I can show you an example of a snapshot in a second. Let's just get this database set up and I'll take one for us. All right, so we'll set up a user. I'll leave the user as admin. Auto generate password. I'm gonna put in a master password. All right, cool. I just wanna make sure y'all couldn't see it. I'll put in a relatively simple password for me to log in with. And here are the capacity settings. This is where I can set my min and my max, I guess. But I'm gonna leave it just, I'll leave it there at 1 and max. And I'm putting mine low. I'm putting mine real low because I don't want to accidentally get charged somehow, even though I'm going to delete this. Invalid password. Hold on. Really? At least 8? I did that. Cannot contain any of the following. Oh, okay. I'm not going to tell you which, I'm not going to tell you which letter is in there, but let's see. Why would it tell me? Why would it not tell me that my password was invalid up here? Why would it tell me at the confirm? Because then I typed it in twice. You wasted my time, Amazon. You wasted my time. I'm trying to pick something I remember. Okay. All right. I'm gonna forget that real fast. But it's okay. Let's go for it. Okay, so got a couple of things here. VPC security group. I'm gonna create a brand new security group. Why? Because we need to SQL, MySQL runs on port 3306 by default. We need to actually enable access to those things. So I'm gonna call this Horizon-RDS and web services data API. I actually don't know. Oh, HTTP endpoint, a connectionless web API. Interesting. I didn't know this was a thing. We're not going to enable that. Additional configuration, database options, give it an initial database name. Sure, I'll give it an initial database name. I'll call it main, Horizon main. We don't really need to do this either. You don't need to do this part. This is just some extra setup to kind of do some stuff in the beginning. You can set up the automatic snapshotting. So you keep it for 1 day and it'll kind of run these things. If you want, this is where you can enable that encryption, and then you can enable deletion protection to make sure this database doesn't get deleted, because databases are so important. Sign up on your website and using Google Classroom, but I'm having trouble locating the schedule. The calendar isn't working for me. Let me get you that right now. I think we made a command for it. Calendar. Yeah, check that out. See if that calendar works for you. It should work for you. Also, how you doing, Miker? Okay. So what it did just now is it created this little cluster space for me. All right. It made this little cluster space for me, and this is actually from something that we did. I should delete this because this is likely costing me a lot of money, to be honest. I didn't even know this was still running. This is a normal database that we were running out of Hoist when we ran the Hoist class. Hoist is an excursion we have for running Terraform. That's probably why it's still up here. We probably never destroyed what we were supposed to destroy, so we need to destroy that because I'm sure it's costing me a lot. But Horizon example is what we have. I hope I remember the password. I think I do. It's still creating for a second here, so let's let it get in here. And let me delete this stuff over here. Let's give it a few. So when it's serverless, you can say, oh, what does that mean? How are we going to use this thing if it's not a system that we can get to? And so we're gonna have to. I'm gonna go in here. I'm gonna mess with the. I didn't change the security group really quick. I'm gonna go in and see if it's enabled already. So this is a security group just like an EC2 security group. And we need to make sure the inbound rules are allowing us to connect to port 3307. And it's gonna give this IP address in here. That's my, through my VPN. So it's fine. And it's gonna allow me in. I'm actually gonna change this to 0.0.0.0 and save the rules here. So it's gonna allow anyone to get there. You shouldn't do 0.0.0.0, especially for your database. You should only, so databases are very interesting. You're usually not gonna allow people to connect directly to your database, okay? You're not gonna let people to connect directly to it, so don't sweat that at all. You don't need to put 0.0.0.0. Usually you're gonna put the exact system that's gonna be doing it. If you have a server, it's gonna be your server's IP address that's gonna be able to access this. So you can do that. But I'll leave it on this for now. And then because I think I'm gonna connect from a different server, that's the only reason why I'm changing that here. And once it's up, did I save that? Yeah, I think it's good to go. And I'm gonna go back to RDS and hope it's up, but we said it's gonna take a bit, so we'll see that. In the meantime, what we'll do is check this out. Random MySQL database. Dummy data for MySQL. There's data everywhere that you can grab. I don't want to automatically generate. I just want a random database dump. I want a random DB dump. All right, I'll generate dummy data. I just feel like there's got to be a site that just has. I thought there's got to be a site that just has random database dumps. Right? That I can just download. Simple random samples from SQL database. Random MySQL just? Maybe. Maybe I shouldn't do random. Employee sample data. Oh, so they give us some? They'll give us some here. Validating data. Oh, so they have all this stuff here. I can put this in a file. They can't just give me apply. Oh, they have a spot on GitHub. All right, cool. Oh, nice. Okay. All right, cool. We can grab that in the installation section. Cool. Nice. All right, we'll grab that in a second. Is our database up? Database is still 1 out of 40. Okay, it's up and it's available. So Horizon's example is going to give us an endpoint. It's going to give us a database endpoint. This is the database endpoint right here. It's right here. It's a nice little DNS. We learned about DNS earlier today. It's a domain name that we're going to use to connect to our system. And you might say, how in the world do you connect to a database? And so what you would do is, this is where the MySQL command line comes in. There's a couple of different ways. You can use MySQL Workbench, all kinds of stuff. But the way that I can connect to this is, actually, I don't think I have MySQL on here. Let me sudo apt, actually, what is this? Am I using Ubuntu? Yeah, sudo apt install MySQL-client. I think that's what I want. Table Plus, I need to check that out. I don't know. Or I could do Docker run. I could do Docker run. Sure. But I don't have Docker installed on here, I don't think either. So I would have to install Docker first. So this is just easier. So now that I have MySQL client installed, I should just be able to do a MySQL -h for host. Okay. So MySQL, I could use the MySQL command to connect to a local instance. It tries to connect to a MySQL local instance by default. I'm going to connect to one that's remote. So then I do a -h and paste in the host name of the system I want to connect to, which is what I just copied. The user -u is the user. And I think the user was admin, I think. And -p, which is the password. And I'm going to type in the password right here. And I'm in. I'm in. How do you know I'm in? Because it drops me into a MySQL command right there. Would Aurora MySQL be compatible with old tools such as PHPMyAdmin? Yes. Yes, it should be. It should be compatible with PHPMyAdmin, no problem. Yep. All right. You would just have to set up your PHPMyAdmin to not hit a local database. But yeah, 100% it should be compatible. All right, so we are in MySQL, and I'm gonna look at all the tables that are in here. Show databases. I don't know why I said tables. And we can see what's in here. And by default, we'll get some basic databases. So these are databases that get installed by default. We're gonna grab some data. We're gonna grab the data that we just saw, and we're gonna load it into this database, okay? So we'll grab it from this gist over here. Let's copy this. Let's go back to our system. Let's clone this data, okay? I'm gonna go somewhere else in the system. I'm gonna git clone this employee data. All this is gonna do is it's gonna download all the information onto this server right here. Takes a little while because it's a lot of data. I'm gonna go into testDB. I guess I could do any of these. I didn't really look at what it is, but I'm gonna just load in one of these databases really quick, okay? First, yeah, I'll just do employees SQL. So first, just to kind of show you kind of how you would manage the way kind of MySQL works, just to show you some. I could do this all in a one-liner, but I kind of want to show you some of this stuff. We're in MySQL right now, and again, MySQL is something cool to learn and to dive into and learn how to deal with SQL databases, whether it's Postgres or MySQL. But we're in MySQL right now to see the databases. Oh my gosh, why is it doing this? Oh no, it's got to stop doing this. Okay. All right, show databases. If I want to see the databases that I have on here, and you must end to tell the interpreter here that you're done with your command, simply hit the semicolon button, and it won't run the command until you hit semicolon. So this is going to show me my databases here, and I'm going to create a database, a brand new one. Create database, and I think I can just give it a name. I think I haven't done this in a very long time, so I'm going to call it employees. And I think employees would just create one if I wanted to, but I'll just call it employees. And so I created that database, and if I show my databases again, check that out. I have an employees database right here. So if I want to load that database in, I can actually do it in two ways. Because of where I logged in from, I can actually probably do this. Source employees.sql. Failed to open. Is it just called employee.sql? Okay, well, I'm gonna log back out. I could do it from here. Oh, that should have worked. I feel like that should have worked. A typo, but fine. I'll do it from here. I always make typos, so not a big deal. The way that you could load a database into that table is I could do the same thing. So I could do, I could take my command here, MySQL -h, the place that I want to go, -u, which is admin, -p, but then I can do the database name. The database name was employee. Was it employee or employees? Either way, doesn't really matter. It'll just make another one. I do this little output operator or redirect operator, and I'm gonna redirect the output of everything that's in the employees.sql file, and it's gonna stick it into the employees database if that's what I called it, okay? And when I do that, it's gonna ask for my password to log in to MySQL, and there it goes. It is beginning to import that data. I could have done it via source as well. Source works a little bit different, but completely fine. This is loading all the data into that database there. This SQL file, we'll take a look at it. It's just a ton of SQL statements to get that data in there. These files are very interesting. It was super interesting the first time that I found out that that's what a SQL dump was, but it's loading it all in. So we're loading a bunch of data right now into our database. And so then now we're gonna have this database. This is creating, notice how the first line it says, or one of the first lines, creating database structure. It's setting up different tables in columns and it's setting up the structure for the way that thing looks. Again, think like your Excel sheets. You have different columns named certain things and different rows, and it's doing all that for us. And yeah, and it's serverless. It's serverless. All we had to do was care about the endpoint. We don't really care about the underpinnings of how it's working. Our application just needs to use this endpoint to connect to it. Loading salaries is taking a long time because those salaries must be fat. They must be huge. So that's great. that's what we care about, and it's all done here. So let's log back in to our MySQL table or into our MySQL database. And whoops, I don't know why I did that. Fine, no command. So we're gonna show our databases again. And again, we have the employees thing here. So now if we want to look at this thing, it is a large DB, so limit 1,000 results. If we, okay, it doesn't show, yeah, that's fine. So I'm not gonna mess around too much with this because we are at the end. I just want you to kind of see a database. So if I wanted to use a different database, if I want to actually like get into one of these databases and begin to submit SQL statements or commands to it, I can use that database. That's how I would do that. And if I want to see what's in here, I can list the tables. I don't know why I did list. It's show tables. Man, my brain is being weird. And so in this database, we have some tables. These are the tables that exist inside of employees. And so I can see all of the things here, and some of this data is linked together. And so I might want to, if I want to see all the employees, which maybe I want to look at all the titles. I want to see what different titles there are in the company, what kind of roles there are in the company. I can say select star. So select all the titles from this table right here. And there are a ton. I should have limited them just like you said, but I wanted you to see that it's going to give me back all of the data that I want. This is, we've submitted our first query, okay? We've queried the data. We said, hey, select everything. We said select every single thing here. And now that was super useless. But now you can see this is dumb. I actually think this is, so I feel like this data is weird. The reason why I think this data is weird is because if the data is called title, it seems that the primary key I feel like shouldn't be the ID of this thing, but it doesn't. I mean, it's fine. Well, so I think unique, I think if I do use unique, I feel like because of whatever this heading is, it's going to, I would have to choose unique for whatever this is, whatever this column is, but not a big deal. But you can kind of see that. But you can also see, you can also add other clauses, and I could say where, if I knew the top of this data, if I knew whatever this column was called, I could say, where title, where like role is equal to, staff. Okay. You could do something like that. So you can start to structure this data together, and you can start to pull data from different places. The reason why this is called a relational database is because what we can do is we can put together statements that are going to pull data from we can start to pull specific data from this. Like maybe we need someone's name. Maybe we need someone's name, and we also need to grab their title and their salary, and that's the only data we want to get out. We can actually put together commands to gather that information and to stick it back together in a way that works for us. That database isn't well designed. I should only have a small number of titles. I agree with you, Rusty. I think I should have a small number of titles. From the way this is, we could do a bunch of stuff to mess with it. It seems really weird that they would do that. That the unique identifier is the ID for the title seems super weird, but it's okay. Not a big deal. We don't really care about that right now. I just kind of wanted you to see that there's data in here. If we do the same thing, if you ever just want to see what's in there, we're just gonna get, it's a ton of stuff in all of these, and I could have limited this. I could have limited to male or female. I could have found specific names. I want to find how many Sarahs are in here. I can find that out. I can find birthdays, things like that. Doesn't really matter. The goal today is not to learn SQL at all. We should spend there is an excursion coming specifically on SQL pretty soon, actually. So at the end of February, March, there will be an excursion on we're running almost all the excursions in March. Almost every excursion will run in March. So Docker, Kubernetes, Git, Linux, there's a couple other ones that are in there. All of them will run in March, throughout March, and then we'll start new boot camps, I think, in April. But we will go over that. Look it up. you know, if you want to start diving into SQL, dive into SQL. Just know that the tool that you're going to use, the AWS service, that's the goal here, is to understand AWS services and what they do. That the managed database service that handles relational databases is RDS, Amazon RDS. The cool things about it is it's fully managed. You got to know it's important for you to take some time to understand what databases it supports. Aurora, which is Amazon's implementation that has compatibility for both MySQL and Postgres. What else was there? There was MySQL, there was MariaDB, there was Postgres, there was Oracle, there was Oracle, there was also Microsoft SQL as well. There's some caveats in there about Microsoft SQL and Oracle SQL that might be important to know. I do not think either one of those allow for read replicas in different availability zones or different regions. I think that's one specific thing about them. I'm trying to think of all the all the things that I know about these things. So there are some caveats with those, but most people, you're not going to run into a lot of people using Oracle, to be honest. I don't think. SQL, Microsoft SQL, you might, but I feel like people who are using Microsoft SQL Server are probably using Azure. But you know, it's all good. I do want to show you, remember this also, RDS also has snapshotting, which is pretty cool. It takes automated backups. So there are automated backups, but these are automatic, these are automated, but you can take a snapshot of a database at any given time. And so I'm going to take a snapshot really quick of, oh, can you not take snapshots of serverless databases? This is something new. I'm new to the serverless Aurora, serverless Aurora game, or the serverless RDS game. This is interesting. Unique key that identifies the database instance. That seems interesting. Does anyone know if that's something? We can look that up in a little bit, or right now, actually. Let's do that. Serverless Aurora snapshot. Oh yeah, maybe it's just, okay, that makes sense. That it might just be doing that. So I'll take a backup of the hoist one really quick so you can see what it looks like. This is an old database that just has some random data in it. I can give it a snapshot name like R Horizon snapshot. And we can simply take the snapshot of this thing. It gets loaded directly into, it's not something that you download. It's set up in a way that makes it super easy for you to load it back in. It doesn't take very long to do unless you have a ton of data. It generally works. It works pretty quickly. Like it's not instant or anything, but it works pretty well. It becomes here and it becomes available with the timestamp when it was created, and it gives you some other information about it. And not only can you use it to roll back, you can use it to create other databases. You can just, same way that we did this with an AMI, the same way with an EBS snapshot, we can use it to create another system. And I'm pretty sure, I may be wrong, I'm pretty sure that underneath all of this is the exact same technology, the exact same services. This is likely running on top of EBS, to be 100% honest with you. But I don't know that for sure, so don't, no, they won't ask you that. I don't know if it's true or not, but I'm pretty sure it is. But it'll simply create it. And when it creates it, it just makes it so that it's a clickable thing. I'll click this final snapshot here, where we'll get some information about what it is. And again, we can use it to do some cool things like actions. Delete snapshot, export it to S3. So we can get it out to S3 if we want. It should send the SQL. I don't know what it looks like. Maybe I'll do that, because I have all 20 gigs. I'm not gonna do that because I'm gonna forget to delete it. But you can send it to S3 where it looks like you could download it. I'm assuming it's going to be in a format which you can use. I'm assuming, but I don't know. When you take a snapshot, does it just export your database in a SQL file? I feel like it's more than that. I feel like when you export it to S3, actually, let's see how long it takes. I don't know if it's going to finish because I got to get out of here pretty soon. But let's see. Let's call this export test. Does it tell us? I've actually never exported it anywhere else. S3 bucket. We'll put it in. Put a mastermind backup. Drop it right in the top. IAM role. Create a new. Oh, why not? Let's do S3. Is there S3 admin access? No encryption key. I'm gonna export it. Let's see. Missing required KMS ID and params. It's not encrypted. Huh. I'm not. Oh, do you have to encrypt? Oh, maybe is this bucket encrypted? Maybe this bucket is encrypted. I don't think it is. Let me put it in a different bucket then. Yeah, let's put it in the Horizon Side Academy bucket. Huh. KMS key ID, but I don't like. Why would I need to put in a key ID? Do you have to encrypt it? I actually don't understand why it's asking me for this. I don't want to encrypt this. Cause I don't actually have I don't have a KMS key ARN. Interesting. Well, let's not work for us right now because okay, that's very interesting. I don't know why it's asking me for that. Huh. Your request to export snapshot S3 failed. Missing required key, KMS ID, and params. But I don't want to use encryption. I guess you have to. Provides a method to extract data, RDS snapshot, compress, S3 bucket for your account. Let's see. Maybe they only let you export to an encrypted bucket. Yeah, I mean, that's what it seems like by exporting. Data accessible, you can cancel the export. Let me see. This is something good to know. If it is, I actually didn't know this, if this was a thing. Oh yeah, it looks like you have to. That's very interesting. Create an AWS key. Interesting. Okay. Well, it's encrypted. Cannot be used as a dump unless using AWS CLI. Interesting. That's very interesting. I didn't know that. This is something that now I know. This is pretty interesting. I never learned this. Maybe it's something I'll learn as I'm studying for the Solutions Architect Pro. I did not know that. Interesting. Cool. Well, I don't know what the backup looks like. Sounds like it might be in a format that's only, because it's going to be encrypted, that we can only use, maybe it's SQL, but it's encrypted and we got to upload it via the AWS CLI, which is what it sounds like. I did not know that at all. But let's see if our snapshot is done of our new one. I just wonder if it's finished or not. For our Horizon snapshot, it is done. It's less than 1 gig because it was, no big deal there. Cool. And you could use that, like I said, I could highlight this and I could go to actions. I could restore it to the same place, or I could use it I could copy it to something else. Or if I'm spinning up a brand new database, I could use this snapshot as a base. That same thing happens with restore as well. You can set it up as the base. But that's it. That is everything tonight. So tangible takeaways. What time is it? I gotta get out of here. Tangible takeaways are one. The first thing that we hopped into tonight was not RDS. It was not. What did we hop into first? This is how I know the day was long. What did we do? Someone let me know what the first thing we did was. Route 53 and DNS. Yeah. So we learned how the internet worked. We learned how in the world the internet works and how we get from domain names to IP addresses and how computers go and look those things up. That's what DNS. DNS is the way that you do that mapping is through records. We learned about a couple different records. A records, which is domain name to IP address. Quadruple A records, which is domain name to IPv6 IP address. We learned about CNAME, which is domain name to domain name, essentially. MX records, domain name to mail record. We learned about a bunch of those different things. We learned that Amazon service to be able to set this thing up and to manage DNS is called Route53. We learned it's called Route53 because DNS works over port 53, and it allows you to do some cool things and with the management of DNS. We learned about alias records, which allows you to, instead of putting in IP addresses, alias the different records that you're using to Amazon resources rather than an IP address, which is super nice. This is super helpful later on. We also learned that Route 53 had a bunch of different things in it that could help us do some cool things like geo IPing and geo management of your traffic. So it has traffic management options. We also learned that it can do things like weighted round robin for things as well, and automatic failover, a bunch of different ways for you to manage where your web traffic is going through DNS. We also learned about different deployment strategies. So we learned about just replacement deployment, where we're just kind of tearing something down and spinning it back up. We also learned about big bang updates, where we can just update everything in place all at once. We also learned about canary deployments, where we kind of send a little traffic over to one, see how it does, watch it, make sure it's good to go. And if everything's looking good, deploy the rest of the stuff. We learned about blue green, where we make replicas of our entire infrastructure and then test it and then send traffic, cut over all of our traffic to that thing. And tear down the other one maybe, or keep it up to be able to move back to. So where one is activated at all times and one is deactivated at all times, and you switch them back and forth. We also learned about rolling deployments, where you update one system at a time until you are done, and there are different trade-offs for all of those things. We also learned about databases. We learned about relational databases and NoSQL databases. So relational databases being those structured data schemas that we have to use SQL to be able to gain access to submit queries, so structured query language to be able to query data from them. We also learned that they're a little bit difficult to scale. Then we learned about NoSQL databases just a little bit. We touched on it. We will learn more about this because NoSQL databases are very, very important. We learned that NoSQL simply means not only SQL, and it gives us multiple ways to access our data rather than just SQL, and that they are pretty scalable. They're very scalable. And then we dove into RDS, which is Amazon's relational database service, and that's what we just did. There's a provisioned option and a serverless option, and that it is, we talked about the ones that it supports, and some of the caveats there, that we have some read replicas, and so if we need to scale horizontally, we can have replicas that are read only of our database that we were writing to, which will allow us to have more services, be able to serve read requests from this thing. We also learned that that's not used for failover or disaster recovery. If we need to worry about that redundancy and that failover disaster recovery, we need to use multi-AZ systems or multi-AZ database instances, which will allow for automatic failover in case there are any issues. So a lot of information tonight. Do NPUs have any involvement in finding an IP address based on DNS? What is an NPU? I don't know what an NPU is. What's up, backend dev? How are you doing? About to enjoy the weekend. I actually have more work to do. I'm gonna go hang out with the wife for a little while, and actually have a lot more work to do. That's why I have to get out of here for sure. Network processing unit. I don't know. Any involvement in finding IP address? I doubt it. I don't really know what a network processing unit is. So if it does, I don't know about it. Yeah, I'm not sure. Cool. I appreciate that. Done stable. I appreciate it. Cool. I'm trying to think if there's anything tomorrow. Like I said, it's going to be the build series. I'm trying to select something off of that list. I'm trying to select something that will build. I don't know. Maybe I think at the beginning, maybe I'll drop a poll at the beginning and give people an option. But like I said, I'm gonna have a Notion doc for the whole thing that I'll have for you, so people can walk through. It'll all of them be simple, but they'll be random. They'll be super random things at any given time that you may want to learn, you may not want to learn. So if you want to come through the build Saturdays, sometimes come on through, see what we're doing. I will decide tonight what we have time for tomorrow and what I have the energy to do, and we'll do that. Random question. I was watching one of the Decoded videos and you were talking about cycling. Yeah. Have you thought about an indoor trainer for your bike? I've considered it a bunch of times. I really have considered it a bunch of times. I would love to get a Peloton, to be honest, but you got to wait forever for them and they're very expensive. Yeah, I thought about it. I don't know very much about them, indoor trainers. That's something I'm not well versed in, and I just haven't looked into it because I'd had a lot of other stuff going on. And yeah, if you know of any good ones, I definitely consider it, because definitely in 2021 I plan on doing a ton of cycling. I think it's gonna be a good outlet for me that I'm gonna need for sure. All right, Hugo, have a great weekend as well. Absolute Global Dynamics, I appreciate it. Thanks for coming through. Thank you so much for the 69 bits. I love it. You know, I always tell, man, I always want to tweet out like, yeah, I'm a child. Okay, I laugh at really dumb things all the time. I appreciate that you gave me 69 bits. I really do appreciate it. You know, sometimes I try to keep my composure to make myself seem a little, you know, a little more adultish than I am. That's what's so interesting about me having, you know, the baby's on the way, the baby's so close. I'm like, bro, I'm still laughing at the dumbest jokes. I'm laughing at the stupidest jokes, but yeah, it's all good. I was on the triathlon team in college. Dope. That's amazing. I'm super impressed and love indoor training compared to Peloton just because of your actual bike. That's interesting. Okay. All right. Yeah, I'll try that out. We had a Wahoo kicker. So I saw the kickers at the store and it just looked like a lot. Like it was just like it was weird. It looked weird to me. I will check that out. I will check that out for sure. I'll definitely check that out. I'll let you know. I'll let you know what I decide. I definitely want, especially with the baby coming along, it might be pretty good to get something like that because I probably won't always be able to go out for a long ride. And for days that I don't, I know there's a little bit of a setup I think you gotta do for it, but you know, it might be good to just hop on the bike and get a good 30 minutes in, 30, 40 minutes in when I can, be right here in case anyone needs me. Yeah, that might be a good idea. I'll check that out. Save me some money so I don't have to buy Peloton. It's a rich, smart bike for people with cash, which is not me. Real riders have rollers. Okay, I've heard about rollers. They look scary to me, but you know, it might be easy to do. All right, I do got to get out of here. I appreciate all the amazing conversation. I'll see you all maybe I'll see you all at 9:30 Eastern time tomorrow if you need it. If you want to come through, we'll be building something. Not really sure yet, but you will have a walkthrough. Who's online today? Who are we gonna say hello to? Callow. What did I say? Yeah, we'll say hello to, actually, let's head over to Callow for sure. Absolutely, I'm glad you learned a lot. You know, come on through. That's the goal. That's the only goal. I learned a lot. I learned a lot from you all today as well. I absolutely learned some things, and I have a whole list of things that I learned from the stream. I'm trying to make a little article around it, but today I learned a bunch of different things, so I will add those as well. But thanks for all the follows. Thank you very much. What's that? Woodshed Radio. Thank you so much for the follow. Appreciate it. Let's get out of here. We're gonna say hello to Callow. If you don't know Callow, he's pretty dope here in the community. He's always building something cool. Always building some kind of bot or some type of Twitch chat function or automation, doing some cool stuff. So if you want to learn how to code and want to be able to build something with somebody, Callow does a lot of that. And he has just a super chill stream and it's fun to kind of chill out on. And it looks like he's doing a Twitch extension. We'll say hello to him. Appreciate it. Everyone have a good weekend. I'm gonna go get some food. That's why I have to go the most. It's not because I have responsibilities. It's because I'm dying of hunger and I gotta get out of here. So peace out, y'all. Have a great weekend. I'll see you tomorrow.